Chapter 2026. It was Chu Fengmian's first time witnessing the power of a peak celestial being or an immortal general's self-destruction. Thunderous booms reverberated throughout the world and shook the entire world created by the life seal. Explosions and collisions occurred again and again, as if they were about to tear the world apart. The space sealed by the life mark was extremely resilient. After Chu Fengmian burned 1,000 immortal stones, the space sealed by the life mark was even more resilient than the internal world of the Origin Whale Emperor, which Chu Fengmian had entered previously. However, under the explosion, the life seal trembled continuously. Every single character on the seal showed signs of shattering, as if they were unable to withstand such a powerful force. Chu Fengmian stood to the side. In front of him, the power of space condensed and turned into a defensive barrier. Within the world of the Life Grand Seal, Chu Fengmian controlled the seal and was the only ruler within it. However, even though he was hiding behind the layers of defense, Chu Fengmian still felt a lingering fear. His nerves were stretched taut when he sensed the aftermath of the explosion. The Blood Moon Monarch's self-destruction contained countless rays of blood moonlight. 99% of the power was colliding with the white divine radiance that erupted from the horn of the mysterious whale. Even so, the little bit of power that was emitted terrified Chu Fengmian. The power of an immortal general's self-destruction was simply unimaginable to Chu Fengmian. It was hard to describe what was happening in front of him. However, Chu Fengmian understood one thing. If the power of the self-destruction reached him, he wouldn't be able to resist at all and would be annihilated. Fortunately, as the owner of the life seal, Chu Fengmian could mobilize the power of the life seal to protect himself in this world. The collision between the self-destruction of the Blood Moon Monarch and the power of the mysterious whale's horn was far beyond Chu Fengmian's ability to intervene. Chu Fengmian stood aside, waiting for the result of the collision between the two forces. The collision of the forces lasted for more than 10 minutes before it gradually subsided. Chu Fengmian looked over. At the center of this collision, countless cracks had appeared in the world sealed by the common life Great Seal. In the end, the space sealed by the Great Seal of Life was still broken. At the center of the collision, Bloody Moon Evil Master was nowhere to be seen. However, Chu Fengmian could still smell a little blood from the cracks in the space, which made him frown. The Blood Moon Monarch still managed to escape. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. Although the Blood Moon Monarch had just self-destructed, it was still his final trump card. But Chu Fengmian could see that this was just Bloody Moon Evil Master's final trump card. Although he blew himself up, his purpose was to win a chance of survival by blowing himself up. For someone like the Blood Moon Monarch, as long as he had a trace of strength left to escape, he could recover. Although the Blood Moon Monarch had to consume a lot of resources to recover his strength, the Blood Moon Monarch was born in the realm Demon Heaven and possessed the bloodline of the Blood Moon Monarch. Even in the realm Demon Heaven, the Blood Moon Monarch had a very high status. Although there were many resources to recover his strength, the Blood Moon Monarch might be able to bear it. The Blood Moon Monarch had self-destructed to resist the power of the mysterious whale's horn and to break the space sealed by the life seal. He had achieved both of these things. If I had stepped into the celestial realm, the Blood Moon Monarch would have died today. What a pity! Chu Fengmian shook his head. The Blood Moon Monarch had been forced into a desperate situation when it self-destructed. If Chu Fengmian could take action at this time, killing the Blood Moon Monarch would be as easy as crushing an ant. But just now, at the center of the collision, the violent collision power was far beyond what Chu Fengmian could bear. If Chu Fengmian intervened, Chu Fengmian would die in the collision of the two forces before Bloody Moon Evil Master died. This time, Chu Fengmian had spent more than 1,000 immortal stones to lay out a plan to kill the Blood Moon Monarch in one fell swoop. This time, it could be considered a failure. The Blood Moon Monarch still managed to escape. However, Chu Fengmian was not discouraged. He also knew that this result was the best he could do. Unless Chu Fengmian stepped into the celestial being realm, he could rush into the center of the collision of forces to kill Bloody Moon Evil Master. Otherwise, there was no chance to kill Bloody Moon Evil Master. Although the Blood Moon Monarch had escaped, the price it had paid was extremely high. When Bloody Moon Evil Master self-detonated, he had used up more than 99% of his strength. It could be said that although Bloody Moon Evil Master had escaped, his strength was less than 1/10 of his original strength. Even if the Blood Moon Monarch had a high status and could obtain countless resources and sacred elixir pills, it would take several years for it to completely recover to its current level. It could be said that Chu Fengmian did not need to worry about the Blood Moon Monarch for several years. Although several years were extremely short for a martialist, the speed at which Chu Fengmian's strength was increasing was simply unimaginable. The next time Chu Fengmian encountered the Blood Moon Monarch after several years, he would most likely have already stepped into the celestial realm. At that time, even if Chu Fengmian encountered the Blood Moon Monarch, he would still be in the celestial realm. It would be hard to say who would emerge victorious. Chu Fengmian's gaze was fixed in the direction of the Blood Moon Monarch's self-destruction. He wanted to see if there was anything left behind by the Blood Moon Monarch. Although there was only emptiness in front of his eyes, Chu Fengmian could sense that there was something hidden in the depths of this world. Come out! Chu Fengmian condensed his spiritual power and made a grabbing motion. His palm traversed the space and reached for the depths of the space. A ray of light suddenly detected Chu Fengmian within the empty ring. It accelerated abruptly and turned into a streak of light in an attempt to escape. However, Chu Fengmian was now the only master in the world of the Life Seal. With a thought, he immediately activated the power of the Life Great Seal. The space immediately froze, and the escape light also stopped. Chu Fengmian took the opportunity to grab it, and the light fell into Chu Fengmian's palm. At the same time, Chu Fengmian suppressed the streak of light with several restrictions, making it impossible for it to escape. Then, Chu Fengmian looked at the palm of his hand. First, he set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, book guest house. Chapter 2027. The light on Chu Fengmian's palm gradually dissipated, revealing a ring that lay quietly in his palm. An empty ring? Chu Fengmian looked at the ring in his palm with a surprised expression. Just now, the Blood Moon Monarch had chosen to self-destruct, resulting in an earth-shattering explosion. His blood essence and immortal artifacts had all been blown to smithereens by the explosion. Originally, Chu Fengmian had thought that the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring had also been blown to smithereens by the explosion, disappearing from the world. Unexpectedly, the empty ring had already developed instincts and knew how to avoid the explosion. It had drilled into the depths of the Life Seal's layers and avoided the explosion. The empty ring still had the imprint of the Blood Moon Monarch. Therefore, when the empty ring was hidden in the depths of the space and discovered by Chu Fengmian, the empty ring hurriedly tried to escape. However, in the world of the Life Seal, even Bloody Moon Evil Master did not have the ability to escape. In the end, he could only explode himself and fight to the death. Only then did he manage to grab a chance of survival and escape. The empty ring didn't have any consciousness. It only had some instincts. It was simply impossible for it to escape from Chu Fengmian's palm. Now that Chu Fengmian reached out and grabbed the empty ring in his palm, he placed a seal on it. The empty ring immediately fell into Chu Fengmian's palm and no longer had the ability to resist. Although the empty ring had an owner, Chu Fengmian could see that the imprint of the Bloody Moon Evil Master within the ring had already become extremely thin after taking a closer look. The Blood Moon Monarch had just been forced into a desperate situation by Chu Fengmian and self-destructed to escape. The power it used to escape was less than 1% of its peak power. It wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. The power of the imprint left by the Blood Moon Monarch in the empty ring was closely related to the true power of the Blood Moon Monarch. Its current power was less than 1/10 of its peak power. If the power of the imprint was still at its peak, it would be somewhat troublesome for Chu Fengmian to erase it. However, the imprint was now very weak. Chu Fengmian suddenly made a move. Heaven-devouring power condensed in his palm and shot towards the empty ring. The devouring power, the power that could devour the heavens, was injected into the empty ring. This devouring power immediately enveloped the imprint. The devouring power was activated, and the power of the Bloody Moon Evil Master's imprint in the empty ring was being devoured little by little. Almost in the blink of an eye, under the devouring power, the power of Bloody Moon Evil Master's imprint had been completely devoured. Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and a stream of spiritual energy condensed on his fingertip. With a point of his finger, the imprint belonging to Bloody Moon Evil Master in the empty ring immediately collapsed, and its power dissipated in all directions. In a distant space, the Blood Moon Monarch had already reformed its body. It had already left the Songhai star field, and was preparing to return to the realm demon sky. It would return to its lair and properly recover its strength. As it flew through the air, its escape light seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. With such a serious injury, it was extremely difficult for it to use its spiritual energy every time. Just as the Blood Moon Monarch was flying through the air, the Blood Moon Monarch's body suddenly trembled. In the next moment, a large mouthful of blood spurted out from the Blood Moon Monarch's mouth. The imprint within the empty ring was the Blood Moon Monarch's life imprint. It was closely related to its power, and could be said to be a part of the Blood Moon Monarch's body. Now that Chu Fengmian made a move and broke the imprint of the Blood Moon Monarch in the empty ring, its power immediately backfired on the Blood Moon Monarch, causing its already severely injured body to be even more injured. Damn it! Damn it! That empty ring was also taken by that brat. And the black whale hidden treasure and the 3,000 feet black whale horn will also be taken by him. The Blood Moon Monarch shouted angrily. It also knew that its empty ring had now fallen into Chu Fengmian's hands. In that empty ring, there was a large amount of wealth that the Blood Moon Monarch had accumulated over countless years. Now it all belonged to Chu Fengmian. This time, I came to the Songhai star field to obtain the black whale hidden treasure and sweep through the realm demon sky. But now, it has all been ruined by this brat. The Blood Moon Monarch had traveled thousands of miles to the Songhai star field this time, but all the benefits had been obtained by Chu Fengmian. As for it, it had suffered a great loss and was forced to self-destruct. For warriors and demon gods, if they were forced to self-destruct once, it would have a negative impact on the improvement of their strength in the future. It was the so-called last resort. The Blood Moon Monarch was also at a critical moment. He really could not think of any other way. Only by self-destructing could he break the Life Seal's empty ring. This time, the Blood Moon Monarch grasped the last chance of survival and escaped with his life. However, the price he had paid was also extremely disastrous. That brat's strength is indeed too strange. I can't let him continue to develop. Otherwise, he will definitely be a monster in the future. It seems that I can only ask the old guys in the family to deal with him. Unfortunately, this way the benefits will also be divided. The Blood Moon Monarch muttered to himself. After suffering such a great loss from Chu Fengmian, the Blood Moon Monarch no longer looked down on Chu Fengmian as before. The strength that Chu Fengmian had displayed was indeed not the strength that a half-step celestial realm warrior could display. The Blood Moon Monarch came from the divine region demonic sky and had never seen someone like Chu Fengmian. He also knew that if Chu Fengmian was allowed to develop, his future achievements would be extremely terrifying. This time, the Blood Moon Monarch was forced to self-destruct by Chu Fengmian. With such a heavy loss, the Blood Moon Monarch would definitely not let Chu Fengmian go. Let's go. The Blood Moon Monarch's eyes flickered as if he had already thought of a countermeasure to deal with Chu Fengmian. His figure flickered and left the Songhai star field in an instant, flying towards the distant demonic sky. In the Songhai star field, in the Xianjing secret treasure. Almost all the warriors and demon gods that had entered the Xianjing secret treasure could feel the terrifying fluctuation of spiritual power that had just been transmitted. They all felt that the fluctuation of spiritual power had been transmitted from the depths of the Xianjing secret treasure. First, set a small target, such as 1 second. Remember, book guest residence. Chapter 2028. Why is there such a terrifying spiritual energy fluctuation in the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure? What happened between the Blood Moon Monarch and that kid? In the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure, 3 figures were flying towards the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure. These 3 figures were Ocean Worship Emperor, Demon Slayer Emperor, and the mysterious young Master Yen and Yen Tiangang. The 3 figures were rushing towards the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure. The 3 of them were the first to notice the shocking explosion caused by the Blood Moon Monarch's self-destruction. The Dark Whale's secret treasure did not seem big, but the tunnel was tens of millions of miles long. Chu Fengmian tore the space apart and traversed an unknown amount of space in an instant to arrive at the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure. However, Ocean Worship Emperor, Demon Slayer Emperor, and Yen Tiangang did not have the ability to do so. They could only fly towards the depths of the tunnel slowly. When Chu Fengmian arrived at the Dark Whale's secret treasure, he felt as if someone was guiding him. Therefore, he did not lose his sense of direction even after tearing the space apart. Instead, he went straight into the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure. 4 Ocean Worship Emperor, Demon Slayer Emperor and Yen Tiangang, the 3 of them could easily tear apart the space of the Dark Whale's secret treasure. However, once they tore apart the space and stepped into it, it would be a one-way trip. Without any guidance, the 3 of them might be transported to a dangerous place if they tore the space apart. This was the Dark Whale's secret treasure. Anything related to innate divine beasts was full of danger. None of them were easy to deal with. The 3 of them did not dare to act rashly. They could only activate their conveyance lights and fly towards the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure. Bloody Moon Evil Master's self-destruction had attracted their attention. Ocean Worship Emperor, Demon Slayer Emperor, and Yen Tiangang were all at the peak of the Celestial Realm and Immortal General Realm. However, when they felt the fluctuation of spiritual energy, their expressions changed drastically. The 3 of them could clearly feel the spiritual energy fluctuation coming from the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure. Although Bloody Moon Evil Master's self-destruction was sealed by the Life Great Seal, a large crack had appeared in the world of the Life Great Seal. The spiritual energy fluctuations within were also transmitted out and were noticed by the 3 people. Demon Slayer Emperor, Ocean Worship Emperor, and Yen Tiangang were shocked when they felt the spiritual energy fluctuation. They looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Although this spiritual energy fluctuation came from the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure, the 3 of them could feel that it was a kind of power that could destroy everything. Even if Bloody Moon Evil Master used his most powerful trump card, he would not be able to erupt with such tyrannical power. There was only one possibility for such a tyrannical power to destroy everything. Demon Slayer Emperor. Whether it was a martial artist or a demon god, their strongest attack was when they self-destructed. Bloody Moon Evil Master was forced to blow himself up? The 3 of them said angrily. Their voices were filled with shock. Ocean Emperor Worship had invited Bloody Moon Evil Master here. Although Bloody Moon Evil Master's strength was not completely wiped out, Bloody Moon Evil Master did not need to use his full strength to defeat him. If the Blood Moon Monarch used its full strength, Ocean Worship Emperor would not be able to withstand more than a few moves from the Blood Moon Monarch. He would be killed by Ocean Worship Emperor. As for Yen Tiangang, he was also a genius of the sacred region. He had heard of the Blood Moon Monarch and knew how powerful the Blood Moon Monarch was. As an opponent, he was extremely wary of the Blood Moon Monarch. But now, the Blood Moon Monarch was forced to self-destruct in the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure. The Blood Moon Monarch's self-destruction was not unthinkable. There was always someone stronger. The immortal General Realm was indeed an invincible overlord in the Songhai Star Zone. Demon Slayer Emperor was the overlord of the chaotic Demon Sea, and Ocean Worship Emperor was the overlord of the entire Songhai Star Zone. They were all invincible figures in the Songhai Star Zone. But the Songhai Star Zone was only a second-grade continent. Even among the second-grade continents, the Songhai Star Zone was not considered strong. Not to mention, there were the 3 sacred regions above it. The 3 sacred regions were completely different from the second-grade continent. Yen Tiangang came from one of the 3 sacred regions, Jiuyu Heaven. He knew the true experts very well. The Immortal General Realm was only the 3rd of the 9 immortal realms. I came to the Songhai Star Zone this time to obtain the Dark Whale's secret treasure and sweep through everything in the Reincarnation Realm. But now, this kid has ruined everything. The Blood Moon Monarch came all the way to the Songhai Star Zone, but all the benefits were obtained by Chu Fengmian. As for the Blood Moon Monarch, he suffered a great loss and was forced to self-destruct. For martial artists and fey gods, if they were forced to self-detonate and devour, it would affect their future growth in strength. This was the so-called final desperate move. The Blood Moon Monarch was also at a critical moment. He could not think of any other way. Only by self-destructing could he break the Life Seal's void ring. The Blood Moon Monarch seized the last chance to escape. However, the price he had paid was also extremely disastrous. That brat's strength is indeed too strange. We can't let him continue to develop. Otherwise, he will definitely become a monster in the future. Looks like we can only ask the old guys in the family to deal with him. It's a pity that the benefits will be divided up. The Blood Moon Monarch muttered to himself. After suffering such a great loss from Chu Fengmian, the Blood Moon Monarch no longer looked down on Chu Fengmian as before. The strength that Chu Fengmian displayed was indeed not the strength that a martial artist who was half a step away from the celestial realm could display. The Blood Moon Monarch came from the Reincarnation Realm, but he had never seen someone like Chu Fengmian. He also knew that if Chu Fengmian continued to develop, Chu Fengmian's future achievements would be terrifying to the extreme. This time, he was forced by Chu Fengmian to blow himself up and suffered such a heavy loss. Bloody Moon Evil Master would never let Chu Fengmian go. Let's go. The Blood Moon Monarch's eyes flickered. He seemed to have thought of a countermeasure to deal with Chu Fengmian. His figure flickered and left the Songhai Star Zone, flying towards the distant Reincarnation Realm. In the Songhai Star Zone, in the Dark Whale's secret treasure, almost all the martial artists and demon gods who entered the Xianjing secret treasure could feel the terrifying fluctuation of spiritual power. They all felt that the fluctuation of spiritual power came from the depths of the Xianjing secret treasure. Loading up next chapters. Chapter 2029. Demon Slayer Emperor, Ocean Monarch Priest, and Yen Tiangang looked at each other and felt that this was the only possibility. The Blood Moon Monarch chased Chu Fengmian all the way into the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure and accidentally entered a dangerous place. That was why it was forced to self-detonate. Among all the explanations, this was the only one that made sense. After all, the 3 of them couldn't believe that the Blood Moon Monarch was forced to self-detonate by Chu Fengmian, a mere half-step celestial realm warrior. Although that was their guess, the 3 of them still had serious looks in their eyes. The Blood Moon Monarch had been chasing Chu Fengmian all the way until it was forced to self-detonate. All of this couldn't have nothing to do with Chu Fengmian. That kid is a little strange, Ocean Monarch Priest said coldly. A half-step celestial realm warrior was like an ant to them. They didn't need to pay attention to him at all. But last time, Chu Fengmian didn't die and escaped the pursuit of the Yuan Whale Emperor. This was already a little strange. Now, this bloody moon evil master was chasing Chu Fengmian and was inexplicably forced to self-detonate. All of this made Ocean Monarch Priest even more afraid of Chu Fengmian. "Let's kill that kid first, then we'll divide the treasures of the Dark Whale's secret treasure equally." Yen Tiangang and Demon Slayer Emperor glanced at Ocean Monarch Priest Emperor and saw through his thoughts. All right. They hit it off immediately. In order to deal with Chu Fengmian, the three immortal generals didn't hesitate to join forces. The three of them flew into the depths of the Dark Whale's secret treasure. The deeper they went into the Dark Whale's secret treasure, the more precious the treasures in the secret rooms around the corridor were. Many of the treasures were things that even they, who were at the peak of celestial realm and immortal generals, desired greatly. They couldn't help but start to collect them one after another. The celestial realm experts who entered the Dark Whale's secret treasure felt like they had entered a huge treasure trove. There were treasures everywhere, and every secret room contained a large amount of treasures. For a moment, they all started to fight for them crazily. On the other hand, the treasures outside no longer had much to do with Chu Fengmian. He had now reached the deepest part of the mysterious whale hidden treasure. The most precious treasure in the Dark Whale hidden treasure was right before Chu Fengmian's eyes. It was none other than this enormous white horn, the horn of the profound whale. The mysterious whale had fallen in an extremely ancient era. However, like the other innate divine beasts, there was no accurate record of how it had fallen. There was also no record of where the mysterious whale's remains were. Connate divine beasts were born from the primordial chi of heaven and earth. Connate divine beasts' bodies were formed from the primordial chi and would not decay even after hundreds of millions of years. Chu Fengmian had once obtained ancestor Tianlong's claw and the heaven-devouring beast's heart. However, they were still immortal and seemed to be alive even after an unknown period of time. It was the same for the horn of the mysterious whale. The power left behind by the horn of the mysterious whale was something that even the Blood Moon Monarch could not resist. Without the horn of the mysterious whale, it would have been impossible for Chu Fengmian to force the Blood Moon Monarch to the point of self-destruction. In order to activate the life seal, Chu Fengmian had burned all the immortal stones he had obtained from the mysterious whale hidden treasure. It could be said that Chu Fengmian had just obtained a large amount of wealth. Now, he had become a pauper again. However, Chu Fengmian had not gained nothing this time. At least, after the Blood Moon Monarch had been forced to self-destruct, the Blood Moon Monarch would not pose any threat to Chu Fengmian for a short period of time. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had obtained the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring. The Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring had survived the self-destruction. The imprint on the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring had been completely removed by Chu Fengmian using the heaven-devouring secret technique. Now, the empty ring had become an ownerless object. Chu Fengmian injected a stream of spiritual power into the empty ring with an expectant look on his face. The Blood Moon Monarch was born in the Holy Region Demonic Heavens. Even in the Holy Region Demonic Heavens, it was most likely a person with an extremely high status. Its bloodline had inherited the bloodline of the Blood Moon Monarch, one of the 10 heavenly demons. It was destined that the Blood Moon Monarch was not an ordinary person. He had a lot of immortal weapons in his possession. Chu Fengmian also wanted to see how many treasures the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring contained. As a stream of spiritual power was injected into the empty ring, Chu Fengmian immediately felt a stream of extremely pure immortal qi flying out from it. The moment he felt the immortal qi, Chu Fengmian was pleasantly surprised. What he lacked the most now were immortal stones. It seemed that the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring was emitting immortal qi. This meant that there were definitely immortal stones in the empty ring. Moreover, the number of immortal stones was not small. There were countless treasures piled up in Bloody Moon Evil Master's empty ring. There were spiritual weapons, materials, sacred medicines, sacred elixirs, all kinds of strange objects, and even a few fairy weapons. Chu Fengmian was a little dazzled. The materials, sacred elixirs, sacred elixirs, sacred elixirs, and sacred elixirs were all things that Chu Fengmian had never seen before. They were all unique treasures of the holy region demonic heavens. However, Chu Fengmian's attention was not on these things. He was most concerned about the immortal stones. The Blood Moon Monarch's status was so high and he was an immortal general. He should have a lot of immortal stones in his possession. Chu Fengmian's spiritual awareness probed the depths of the empty ring and suddenly discovered a jade box. This jade box was as tall as a person. This incomparably pure immortal qi was being emitted from this jade box. Chu Fengmian's spiritual awareness moved and a wave of spiritual awareness entered the jade box. The jade box suddenly opened and an entire jade box of immortal stones appeared in front of Chu Fengmian's eyes. Each immortal stone emitted a bluish-green radiance and an incomparably pure immortal qi. So many! Chu Fengmian's eyes swept over the immortal stones and he was a little stunned. There were thousands of immortal stones in this jade box. Chu Fengmian had never seen so many immortal stones before. Chu Fengmian used his spiritual awareness to count them. There were a total of 6,000 immortal stones. There were 6,000 immortal stones in the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring. I've struck it rich this time. This was the only thought left in Chu Fengmian's mind. First, he set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, book guest residence. Chapter 2030. There were a total of 6,000 immortal stones in the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring. This number was far beyond Chu Fengmian's imagination. Chu Fengmian had thought that since the Blood Moon Monarch was so powerful, had a noble bloodline, and was born in the sacred domain demonic deity realm, the wealth in his empty ring couldn't be small. However, when he opened the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring and saw the scene inside, Chu Fengmian was still shocked. There were a total of 6,000 immortal stones alone. 1,000 immortal stones were enough to help a half-step celestial realm martial artist or Yao immortal directly pass the celestial tribulation and enter the celestial realm. Chu Fengmian had burned immortal stones to activate the Life Grand Seal. He had burned 200 immortal stones in one go, which made his heart ache. When Chu Fengmian was trying to break through to the half-step celestial realm, he had crossed countless star domains and used a lot of methods to accumulate the 1,000 immortal stones. In the end, he hadn't been able to gather all of them until he killed Lan Ming. 1,000 immortal stones was an astronomical number. Among the celestial realm experts in the Songhai star domain, other than the two overlords, the celestial realm experts couldn't take out 1,000 immortal stones at once. However, the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring contained more than 1,000 immortal stones. There were a total of 6,000 immortal stones. Chu Fengmian had burned more than 1,000 immortal stones to activate the Life Great Seal, but in the end, he only forced the Blood Moon Monarch to self-destruct instead of killing the Blood Moon Monarch. This already made Chu Fengmian a little disappointed. However, after opening the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring, Chu Fengmian's disappointment was swept away. Instead, he was extremely excited. This time, he had struck it rich. Just the 6,000 immortal stones alone were an astronomical number. Chu Fengmian needed immortal stones to break through to the next realm, condense his immortal true body, or activate the Life Great Seal. Now that he had 6,000 immortal stones in one go, Chu Fengmian wouldn't lack immortal stones in a short period of time. He could use the Life Grand Seal several times. If he burned immortal stones to activate the Life Seal, Chu Fengmian would have the ability to fight against immortal generals. With these 6,000 immortal stones, Chu Fengmian felt much more at ease. In order to deal with Bloody Moon Evil Master, he had used up all the immortal stones he had just accumulated. In fact, it was an extremely dangerous act. Without immortal stones, Chu Fengmian would not be able to utilize the full power of the Life Seal. If Chu Fengmian were to encounter the Ocean Monarch, the Demon Slayer Monarch, or the others, he would be in great danger. He might even be killed by them. However, with the immortal stones, Chu Fengmian could activate the life seal. Although it was impossible for Chu Fengmian to kill the ocean monarch, it was possible for him to escape unscathed with the help of the life seal. Moreover, the 6,000 immortal stones in the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring weren't all the treasures in it. In the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring, there were spiritual weapons, materials, sacred pills, sacred medicines, and all kinds of wondrous items. Without exception, there was nothing ordinary in it. Every item that was taken out was a treasure that celestial realm experts would fight over. Almost all of the sacred pills were above the medieval level. Even the primeval sacred pills could be found everywhere. Almost all of the materials could be used to refine immortal weapons. As for the wondrous items, many of them were rumored to be extremely precious. The total value of these items could be said to be higher than the 6,000 immortal stones. Chu Fengmian was the one who got rich overnight. Although Chu Fengmian had a divine meridian and could continuously condense divine-grade spirit stones, the value of divine-grade spirit stones wasn't that great for someone of his strength. Although he could still buy some immortal stones with divine-grade spirit stones, Chu Fengmian wouldn't be able to get many immortal stones even if he swept through countless chambers of commerce. For those who had stepped into the celestial realm, immortal stones, immortal items, and sacred pills above the Middle Ages were the only things of value to them. Medieval-level sacred pills were nothing in their eyes, and the same was true for divine-grade spirit stones. Although Chu Fengmian wasn't a pauper before, he wasn't rich either. Moreover, Chu Fengmian lacked immortal stones. Now that he had obtained the countless treasures in the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring, Chu Fengmian could be said to have become rich overnight. The wealth of the Ocean Monarch and the Demon Slayer Monarch, who were invincible overlords in the Songhai Star Zone, might not be comparable to Chu Fengmian's wealth. However, the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring wasn't all that Chu Fengmian had obtained. The empty ring was just a pleasant surprise for Chu Fengmian. The most precious and important treasure in Chu Fengmian's eyes was right in front of him. It was the horn of the mysterious whale. The horn of the mysterious whale was the condensation of the innate divine beast mysterious whale's power. It possessed incredible power. Even after tens of thousands of years, the power left in it was still something that the Blood Moon Monarch, an immortal general, couldn't resist. Chu Fengmian had been able to tear through space and arrive at the depths of the mysterious whale's secret treasure because the horn of the mysterious whale was calling out to him. Just now, Chu Fengmian had wanted to collect the horn of the mysterious whale but had been interrupted by the arrival of the Blood Moon Monarch. Now that the Blood Moon Monarch had escaped, no one could disturb Chu Fengmian anymore. Chu Fengmian looked at the horn of the mysterious whale. The power of the mysterious whale's bloodline in his veins was pushed to the extreme. At the same time, the power of the mysterious whale descended and a huge shadow of the mysterious whale appeared behind Chu Fengmian. The appearance of the mysterious whale silhouette seemed to be calling out to the mysterious whale's horn. The 3,000 feet long horn of the mysterious whale suddenly shattered. The horn of the mysterious whale, which had been standing tall in the center of this white world, suddenly shattered and turned into rays of light that poured into Chu Fengmian's body. The horn of the mysterious whale didn't wait for Chu Fengmian to collect it. It actually chose to merge with Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian was a little surprised. He had thought that it would be somewhat troublesome to collect the horn of the mysterious whale. He hadn't expected that the horn of the mysterious whale would actually merge with Chu Fengmian's body on its own accord. The white rays of light were the pure power of the mysterious whale. They belonged to the mysterious whale's primordial power. In an instant, all of them poured into Chu Fengmian's body. Chapter 2031. The horn of the mysterious whale actively integrated the power of the mysterious whale into Chu Fengmian's body. A steady stream of primordial force was integrated into Chu Fengmian's body. This primordial force was enough to transform a person completely. It was even greater than transcending the celestial tribulation and becoming an immortal. Anyone who obtained this primordial force would be reborn. However, Chu Fengmian had already integrated the primordial force from ancestor Tianlong's claw and the heart of the heaven-devouring beast. His body had already transformed, and he had transcended the heaven-defying tribulation to become a variant of heaven and earth. Since he had already integrated the primordial force, there was no need for another transformation. Now, the primordial force contained in the horn of the mysterious whale was integrated into Chu Fengmian's body. A steady stream of power poured into Chu Fengmian's 5 viscera and 6 bowels. His blood vessels, his bones, and every drop of his blood essence were integrated with the power of the mysterious whale's horn. The power of primordial and the power of innate divine beasts were powers that all warriors and fey immortals yearned for. A drop of innate divine beast blood essence or a little bit of innate divine beast bloodline was enough to transform countless warriors and fey immortals. Furthermore, Chu Fengmian had not only obtained the mysterious whale's bloodline, but also integrated the horn of the mysterious whale's power into his body. The mysterious whale represented the origin of the Sea Clan. The moment the primordial force of the mysterious whale's horn integrated into Chu Fengmian's body, he felt that his power level had undergone a transformation. It seemed to have reached a higher level. If a venerable could integrate a wisp of primordial qi, he would be considered to have gone against the heavens and become a variant of heaven and earth. His future would be limitless. However, Chu Fengmian had already integrated the primordial qi of ancestor Tianlong and the heaven-devouring beast. This time, he had also obtained the mysterious whale's horn. His future achievements were already unimaginable. Even though there were countless geniuses and monstrous geniuses throughout history, none of them had had such an amazing adventure as Chu Fengmian. 3 enormous phantoms appeared behind Chu Fengmian. These 3 enormous figures were the power of the 3 great Khanate divine beasts, Tianlong, the heaven-devouring beast, and the dark whale. Although Chu Fengmian had obtained the profound whale's bloodline and could manifest a profound whale projection, it had always been much weaker than Tianchang's and the heaven-devouring beast's projections. This was because Chu Fengmian had only possessed the bloodline of the Xian whale, and had not truly controlled the origin of the Xian whale. However, this time, after Chu Fengmian fused the grand primordial power contained in the horn of the black whale, the black whale phantom that was condensed again was already stronger than the ancestral celestial dragon and the heaven-devouring beast. Chu Fengmian controlled the dragon origin because he had obtained Tianlong's claw, while the heaven-devouring origin was the heart of the heaven-devouring beast. This time, Chu Fengmian had obtained the horn of the profound whale, which was the condensation of its power. The black whale's horn contained more primordial aura than the ancestral sky dragon's claw and the heaven-devouring beast's heart. In terms of bloodline power, the power of the profound whale's bloodline was far superior to that of the heaven-devouring beast and Tianlong's bloodline. But now these 3 bloodline powers belonged to Chu Fengmian's second origin, so these 3 completely different powers would not conflict with each other in Chu Fengmian's body. Instead, they would complement each other. Although I didn't make a breakthrough, fusing with the horn of the profound whale is much more important to me than making a breakthrough. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself as he observed the changes in his body. For Chu Fengmian, the integration of the horn of the black whale into his body was not a quantitative change, but a qualitative change. Although Chu Fengmian's realm did not change, and he did not break into the celestial realm, his power had sublimated and reached a new level. Chu Fengmian condensed a wisp of spiritual power in his palm. This wisp of spiritual power was no longer pure spiritual power. There was a kind of chaotic ancient power in this spiritual power. Chu Fengmian knew that this power was the power of Genesis. After the horn of the profound whale integrated into Chu Fengmian's body, the spiritual power that he casually activated now contained a trace of the power of Genesis. Although it was only a trace, it was still impossible for the most powerful warriors, demon gods, immortals, and even the lofty immortal emperors to control a trace of the power of Genesis. This power of Genesis could only be controlled by the variance of heaven and earth. It was the most powerful power in the world, even surpassing the power of creation and heavenly tribulation. When Chu Fengmian was fighting against the Blood Moon Monarch, the Ocean Monarch, and the others, he was restrained in every way because of the gap in power. There was a huge difference between spiritual power and immortal power. The same immortal artifact, immortal art, or martial technique would result in completely different results when activated with spiritual power and immortal power. The reason why immortal generals were so powerful was because they could transform their spiritual power into immortal power when they stepped into the immortal general realm. However, this time, Chu Fengmian's spiritual power contained the power of Genesis, which made Chu Fengmian's spiritual power completely different from that of ordinary warriors and demon gods. Chu Fengmian channeled a surge of spiritual energy into the Great Seal of Life. Suddenly, the power of the Great Seal of Life was activated. With a loud rumble, Chu Fengmian held the Great Seal of Life in his hand and pressed it down, shattering the space. Now that Chu Fengmian activated the Great Seal of Life with his spiritual power, its power was 10 times stronger than before. Although it was still slightly weaker than when he activated it with pure immortal power by burning immortal stones, it was still much stronger than before. This was the most direct change brought to Chu Fengmian by the power of Genesis from the horn of the black whale. Of course, this was not the only benefit brought by the horn of the black whale. The power of Genesis would always be with Chu Fengmian. Even if Chu Fengmian stepped into the celestial realm and became an immortal general in the future and converted his spiritual power into immortal power, the power of Genesis would still be integrated into his immortal power. Now that Chu Fengmian's spiritual power was integrated with the power of Genesis, its quality was close to that of immortal power. Once Chu Fengmian stepped into the celestial realm and integrated his immortal power with the power of Genesis, the quality of his power would be stronger than that of immortal generals, immortal lords, immortal kings, and even ultimate celestial realm experts. First, he set a small goal such as 1 second. Remember, the book abode. Chapter 2032. It took Chu Fengmian half an hour to familiarize himself with the changes in his strength after merging with the power of Primordial. The advancement of his strength brought Chu Fengmian many benefits. The power of Primordial would bring him great benefits whenever he needed spiritual power. Whether it was Chu Fengmian activating his spiritual weapon, martial techniques, or swordsmanship, the power of his swordsmanship and martial techniques would be increased by 2 or 3 times with the help of the power of Primordial. Although it wasn't as exaggerated as when he activated the People's Great Seal, it was still somewhat shocking. Chu Fengmian's current strength was not inferior to a real celestial being expert. He would not be inferior to the immortal warrior, or demon immortal in the celestial being realm. It was extremely difficult to double his strength with such strength. No one knew how many fortuitous encounters he had to have in order to achieve it. But now, after merging with the horn of the mysterious whale, Chu Fengmian's strength had increased by 3 times. Especially, Chu Fengmian's realm had not been upgraded yet. The increase in strength was not due to the upgrade of his realm, but the sublimation of his strength. This was much more difficult than directly breaking through the realm to improve his strength. The sublimation of his strength would benefit Chu Fengmian more when he broke through the realm in the future. Some genius warriors would not be in a hurry to break through the realm in each realm. Instead, they would accumulate strength so that they could surpass others in the same realm. Then, when they broke through the realm in the future, their strength would also surpass demon immortals in the same realm. For example, Chu Fengmian could be said to be invincible in the same realm since a long time ago. This kind of accumulation also made Chu Fengmian's strength many times stronger than demon immortals in the same realm in the following realms. Chu Fengmian was only in the half-step celestial being realm, but his strength was already above the immortal warrior realm in the celestial being realm. He also had the ability to contend with immortal general realm. Once Chu Fengmian stepped into the celestial being realm, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. At that time, Chu Fengmian would be able to kill immortal generals. I've already come to the mysterious whale hidden treasure. I didn't expect to have such a harvest. Chu Fengmian murmured in his heart. The sudden change in the situation left Chu Fengmian somewhat unable to react. It had far exceeded Chu Fengmian's expectations. Originally, when Chu Fengmian entered the black whale hidden treasure, he only wanted to obtain some benefits and leave as soon as possible. However, after being chased by the Blood Moon Monarch, Chu Fengmian had no choice but to tear apart space and come to the deepest part of the black whale hidden treasure. Now, the real treasure of the black whale's secret treasure, the 3,000-foot horn of the black whale, had been integrated into his body. Chu Fengmian hadn't expected all of this. Vaguely, Chu Fengmian felt that everything was a little strange. Everything had gone too smoothly since Chu Fengmian had entered the mysterious whale's secret treasure and obtained the mysterious whale's horn. This was especially true for the horn of the black whale. First, it had helped Chu Fengmian beat back the Blood Moon Monarch. Then, it had taken the initiative to merge with Chu Fengmian's body. Everything had happened so smoothly that Chu Fengmian didn't have to expend much effort. This made Chu Fengmian feel a little strange. After all, when Chu Fengmian had wanted to refine the primogenitor Tianlong's claw, it had taken him a lot of effort and a lot of risk to succeed. However, this time, everything had gone so smoothly. However, Chu Fengmian still remembered that the heart of the heaven-devouring beast had also taken the initiative to merge with Chu Fengmian's body. At that time, Chu Fengmian had guessed that although the innate divine beast had fallen, it wasn't as simple as what was recorded in the ancient books. This time, the horn of the black whale had taken the initiative to merge with Chu Fengmian's body, which had intensified Chu Fengmian's guess. Although the innate divine beast had fallen, it seemed to have a backup plan and hadn't really died. Like Jianmu, primogenitor Tianlong, the heaven-devouring beast, and the black whale, which had been considered invincible in the primordial era, their backup plans would still exist even after hundreds of millions of years. Somehow, Chu Fengmian sensed that he had entered a path. Ever since Chu Fengmian came to the secret chamber of the black whale, he had been guided to let Chu Fengmian obtain the horn of the black whale. Black whale, heaven-devouring beast, primogenitor Tianlong, I don't know what you are plotting. If you are just helping me, I will definitely repay your kindness in the future. However, if you are plotting against me, just wait and see. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold as he muttered to himself. Chu Fengmian had lived 2 lives and had died once. What was there to be afraid of? If the 3 innate divine beasts wanted to plot against Chu Fengmian and use him as a chess piece, then Chu Fengmian wasn't the kind of person who would let others plot against him. The stronger Chu Fengmian became, the more he understood that although many things recorded in the ancient books were true, the records were somewhat vague. For example, the innate divine beasts were invincible existences with strength that surpassed immortal emperors. However, in the end, all of them had fallen in the same era. None of them had survived. This matter was definitely not ordinary. However, Chu Fengmian's strength was still too weak. Chu Fengmian simply did not have the qualifications to know such an ancient secret. However, as Chu Fengmian became stronger, he would eventually be able to dispel the fog and unravel all the mysteries. At that time, Chu Fengmian would also have the ability to know the secret of his second life. The next thing to do is to leave the Songhai star field and find an opportunity to break through to the celestial realm. Chu Fengmian had already planned out his next move. Although the Black Whale secret chamber was beyond Chu Fengmian's expectation, it had brought him great benefits and made him feel much more relaxed. Now that his spiritual energy had advanced, his strength had increased threefold. Even if he faced immortal generals like Ocean Monarch and Demon Slayer Monarch, he could still fight without using immortal stones. Although it wasn't enough to defeat Ocean Monarch and the others, it was impossible for Ocean Monarch to kill Chu Fengmian and force him into a dead end. Before coming to the Songhai star field, Celestial Realm and Immortal Realm were untouchable existences. Now I have the confidence to escape unscathed when facing immortal generals. Chu Fengmian's heart was filled with emotions. After coming to the Songhai star field, he had seen countless experts and obtained countless fortuitous encounters. His strength had also improved rapidly. First, he set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, Book Dweller. Chapter 2033. Before coming to the vast sea star field, Chu Fengmian had to look up to Celestial Realm powerhouses. Even if they had just passed the Celestial Tribulation, Celestial Realm powerhouses could easily kill Chu Fengmian. But now Chu Fengmian could easily kill Celestial Realm powerhouses, or even Celestial Warrior powerhouses. All of this was because Chu Fengmian had come to the vast sea star field, a wider world, which allowed his strength to improve so quickly. If Chu Fengmian had stayed in the 9 domains, or in a small place like the Daluotian star field, he wouldn't have been able to improve to such a level even if he cultivated hard for 10 years. The deeper the water, the bigger the fish. It was like a small lake that could never give birth to a huge whale. Chu Fengmian also knew that Celestial Realm powerhouses had appeared in the Daluotian star field, and even the Yenluo star field. However, without exception, such people left their original star fields and went to a more prosperous and wider world. For example, the eldest senior brother of the Holy Dragon sect, Yun Zun, had swept through the Daluotian star field and was considered an invincible figure. In the end, he left the Holy Dragon's secret realm and went to other star fields. Once one's strength reached a certain limit, they would have to leave the star field they grew up in and go to a more prosperous world, to the legendary 3 Great Saint Domains. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, it wouldn't be easy for him to improve even if he stayed in the vast sea star field. For him, the legendary 3 Great Saint Domains were the real stage for Chu Fengmian in the future. That was where Chu Fengmian could truly display his skills and compete with the countless legendary geniuses. Although Chu Fengmian hadn't been to the 3 Great Saint Domains, he had come into contact with the geniuses of the 3 Great Saint Domains. Whether it was the Blood Moon Monarch or Yen Tiangang, they were all peerless geniuses who had stepped into the Celestial Realm at the age of 100. This kind of talent was simply incredible. If one didn't go to the Saint Domain, it would be impossible to believe that there were such talented cultivators in the world. Moreover, this Blood Moon Monarch and Yen Tiangang could only be considered as ordinary geniuses in the 3 sacred realms. They couldn't even be considered as outstanding geniuses. The 3 holy domains were absolute holy lands. Geniuses were everywhere and experts were as common as clouds. It was impossible to imagine how heaven-defying the best of the 3 holy domains would be. However, Chu Fengmian wasn't worried at all. He had defied the heavens and transcended the heaven-defying tribulation. He was a genius among geniuses, a freak among freaks. Since ancient times, there had never been someone like Chu Fengmian who could control the power of 3 pre-heaven god-beasts. Once Chu Fengmian stepped into the celestial realm in the future, his strength would truly erupt. At that time, Chu Fengmian's tyrannical strength would truly show. Without entering the celestial being realm, Chu Fengmian's heaven-defying opportunity could only be utilized by 10%, or even less. Once he stepped into the celestial realm, Chu Fengmian would be considered to have stepped onto the stage that belonged to him. Let's go back to the Daluo star domain and rest for a while. After arranging everything, I'll prepare to go to the 3 holy domains. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered. He had already thought of the next step. He would go to the 3 holy domains. Only in the 3 holy domains could Chu Fengmian find his true opponent. Only then could Chu Fengmian's potential be stimulated, and he could display his strength. After obtaining the horn of the black whale, Chu Fengmian was ready to leave the black whale's secret treasure. Although there were many other treasures in the black whale's secret treasure, these treasures were nothing compared to the horn of the black whale. Even millions of immortal stones couldn't compare to the horn of the black whale. The horn of the black whale was the real treasure in the black whale's secret treasure. As for the other treasures, Chu Fengmian didn't intend to compete with those people for them. Although Chu Fengmian had severely injured the Blood Moon Monarch and was no longer a threat, there were still 3 immortal generals in the black whale's secret treasure: the Demon Slayer Emperor, the Ocean Monarch, and Yen Tiangang. Even Chu Fengmian would find it difficult to face the 3 of them. His current strength wasn't enough to confront the 3 of them. This time, Chu Fengmian had already obtained the real benefit. There was no point in fighting with the 3 of them now. Let's go. Chu Fengmian's figure flickered and suddenly disappeared from the white world. His figure shuttled freely in the black whale's secret treasure. The black whale's secret treasure was huge and mysterious. There were hidden places everywhere. When Chu Fengmian tried to tear the space, he felt that the black whale's secret treasure was like a piece of chaos. He couldn't sense the direction from it. Therefore, he had to rely on his luck to tear the space and get there. However, this time, Chu Fengmian once again tore the space apart. All the mysteries, fog, and secret places of this incomparably mysterious whale's secret treasure fell into Chu Fengmian's eyes. Chu Fengmian had a clear view of the entire dark whale's secret treasure. Even some secret places hidden in the depths of the void were clearly seen by Chu Fengmian. Everyone was astonished to see this scene. Now, Chu Fengmian had a panoramic view of the entire dark whale's secret vault. Even every secret chamber and every expert in the dark whale's secret vault was within Chu Fengmian's view. This was simply unbelievable. Could it be because I have merged with the horn of the black whale? Chu Fengmian thought for a long time. There was only one possibility. The black whale's secret treasure was built to worship the black whale. The real treasure was the 3,000 feet long horn of the black whale. Now that the horn of the black whale had merged with Chu Fengmian's body, Chu Fengmian seemed to have become half the owner of the black whale's secret treasure. Chu Fengmian had a panoramic view of the entire black whale's secret treasure. Every movement of every martial artist was clearly seen by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian could even hear their conversations clearly. He could clearly see what kind of treasures each martial artist had obtained during the battles. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered and he suddenly looked towards the direction of the corridor. There were 3 figures with the strongest aura. They were Demon Slayer Emperor, Yen Tiangang, and Jihai Emperor, the 3 immortal generals. The 3 of them were flying towards the deepest part of the corridor, which was the pure white world. Their conversation was overheard by Chu Fengmian. The 3 of them are teaming up to kill me? Let's set a small target first. For example, 1 second. Chapter 2034. Demon Slayer Emperor, Yen Tiangang, and Ocean Emperor Worship were originally 2 opposing forces. But now, they had joined forces to deal with Chu Fengmian. The 3 of them had also noticed Chu Fengmian's strange behavior and wanted to practice killing him first. I'm indeed in great danger if the 3 of them join forces to kill me. After all, they are 3 immortal generals. I'm still no match for them. It would be difficult for me to escape unscathed. Although Chu Fengmian's strength had skyrocketed, he knew that he could escape unscathed if he were to face an immortal general expert. But if he were to face 2 or 3 immortal generals, Chu Fengmian's current strength was not enough. If Chu Fengmian accidentally bumped into the 3 of them, it would be extremely dangerous. However, Chu Fengmian's lips curved into a smile. Now, Chu Fengmian could see every movement of every warrior in the dark whale's secret treasure. It would be a piece of cake for Chu Fengmian to avoid the 3 of them. He did not need to fight with them at all. Demon Slayer Emperor, Yen Tiangang, and Ocean Emperor worship were now moving forward. They were about to reach the core of the dark whale's secret treasure, the pure white world. Unfortunately, the real treasures in this pure white world had already been obtained by Chu Fengmian. The three of them could only end up empty-handed. Apart from the three immortal generals, the other warriors and demon immortals in the dark whale's secret treasure were only in the immortal warrior or immortal realm. Chu Fengmian wasn't afraid of these people. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, he could fight against immortal generals and escape unscathed. Facing these immortal warriors and demon immortals, it wouldn't be difficult for Chu Fengmian to kill them with his full strength. 50% of the treasures in the secret chambers of the Xian Jing secret treasure have already been collected. However, the remaining treasures are still priceless. Before I leave, I'll collect them all. Originally, Chu Fengmian had been prepared to tear space apart and leave the mysterious whale hidden treasure after obtaining the horn of the mysterious whale. But now, Chu Fengmian could actually observe every corner of the Xian Jing secret treasure trove. Chu Fengmian was able to observe every movement in the secret treasure trove. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian changed his mind. Since the Demon Slayer Emperor, the Ocean Monarch, and Yen Tiangang couldn't find Chu Fengmian wasn't in a hurry to leave. He might as well collect as many treasures as he could from the other secret chambers. Although the treasures in those secret chambers couldn't compare to the profound whale's horn, they were still filled with immortal stones, sage pills, and other things that were priceless treasures. Of course, the more treasures there were, the better. Now that Chu Fengmian could observe the entire black whale secret vault, he could immediately detect everything that happened inside. If there were any experts that came, Chu Fengmian could also detect them and escape. Chu Fengmian observed the entire black whale hidden treasure for a while. Then, he tore space apart and his body flickered as he entered a unique space. This space was a well-hidden space in the dark whale secret treasure. There were many seals and formations engraved in all directions to conceal this space. In the black whale hidden treasure, besides the open secret chambers on both sides of the corridor, there were also some secret chambers that were hidden. In these secret chambers, the sacrificial items were even more precious. However, due to the restrictive array formations set up above these hidden chambers, it was almost impossible for ordinary warriors and Fey immortals to enter these secret chambers. But now, Chu Fengmian had merged with the horn of the mysterious whale. He was almost half the owner of the black whale hidden treasure. Chu Fengmian tore space apart and stepped into the secret chamber. Sensing Chu Fengmian's presence, the surrounding restrictive formations didn't resist him at all. Instead, they opened a passageway and allowed Chu Fengmian to walk into it. So many immortal stones! Chu Fengmian looked at the altar. The immortal stones on the altar had piled up to the size of a small mountain. There were thousands of them. In the black whale hidden treasure, there were sacrificial treasures, sacred elixirs, immortal stones and so on. However, what Chu Fengmian needed the most was immortal stones. Although Chu Fengmian had obtained 6,000 immortal stones from the empty ring of the Blood Moon Monarch, it was still not enough. If he burned the immortal stones to activate the power of the life seal to the maximum, it would consume more than 1,000 immortal stones. Therefore, these 6,000 immortal stones were only enough to activate the life seal 5 times. Moreover, Chu Fengmian needed a large amount of immortal stones to condense his immortal real body and increase his realm. The more immortal stones Chu Fengmian had, the better. Immortal stones were a hard currency among the celestial realm experts. There were a large number of immortal stones, heavenly wonders, immortal skills, immortal weapons and ancient sacred elixirs. Collect. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and all the immortal stones on the altar flew into his palm and into his spatial ring. There were a total of 4,000 immortal stones on the altar. Together with the immortal stones in the Blood Moon Monarch's empty ring, Chu Fengmian had 10,000 immortal stones. Let's go and collect the treasures in the other secret chambers. After collecting the 4,000 immortal stones on the altar, Chu Fengmian did not stop. He tore the space apart and flew towards the next secret chamber. Although most of the treasures in the secret chambers of the Black Whale hidden treasure had been collected by the warriors and demon gods, there were still some secret chambers left. These secret chambers were difficult to find even for the warriors and demon gods who had entered the Black Whale hidden treasure. Only Chu Fengmian, who was in control of the entire Black Whale hidden treasure, could discover these secret chambers and collect the treasures in them. In less than 5 minutes, Chu Fengmian's figure had entered a hidden chamber. Chu Fengmian had collected all the treasures in these secret chambers. Chu Fengmian had obtained a large number of sacred elixirs, materials, spiritual weapons, heavenly wonders and countless other treasures. He had even obtained 2 immortal weapons. These 2 immortal weapons were a pair. One was a saber and the other a sword. They seemed to have been refined by the same weapon refiner. The quality of these 2 immortal weapons was far inferior to the life seal. They were just ordinary immortal weapons, about the same quality as the trident in the East Forest Ocean Emperor's hands. Among immortal weapons, they should be considered low-grade. Please remember the domain name of this book. Chapter 2035. Just like spiritual weapons, immortal weapons were also divided into different grades. This pair of sabers and swords should only be the most common lower-grade immortal weapons. Above them, there were middle grade, upper grade, supreme grade, and even higher grades. For example, the life seal in Chu Fengmian's hand was in the hands of the East Forest Ocean Emperor. The East Forest Ocean Emperor did not cultivate the Life Emperor art, so he could not make the life seal recognize him as its master. Thus, the life seal could unleash its full power. The life seal was considered one of the best among immortal weapons. It was at least an upper-grade immortal weapon or even a supreme-grade immortal weapon. However, even a lower-grade immortal weapon was much more powerful than a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. Unless it was a spiritual weapon with the ability to evolve, it would be far inferior to this pair of saber and sword. Spiritual weapons were like martial artists. They could evolve if they had some fortuitous encounters. Chu Fengmian's ancestral dragon paragon sword and titanic godly sword, for example. Although these 2 spiritual swords were peak heaven-grade spiritual weapons, they had been with Chu Fengmian for a long time and had obtained countless opportunities. These 2 spiritual swords already had the opportunity to be upgraded. Once they were upgraded, the power of these 2 spiritual swords would be much more powerful than ordinary immortal artifact. Therefore, Chu Fengmian did not need this pair of saber and sword. However, Chu Fengmian did not give them to the divine tree to devour. Chu Fengmian did not need immortal weapons. However, Sword Dao sect did not have any immortal weapons. Han Yueli and Luo, she did not have any immortal weapons. These 2 immortal weapons could be given to them to increase their strength. Chu Fengmian kept the 2 immortal weapons in his spatial ring. Then, he moved and tore the space in the direction of another hidden secret room. Immortal stones? Chu Fengmian tore the space apart and stepped into the space. Immediately, he saw a huge altar at the center of the secret chamber. Above the altar, there was a pile of spiritual stones that were emitting blue light. So many immortal stones! Chu Fengmian glanced over and saw a pile of celestial stones. There were at least 7,000 to 8,000 of them. Chu Fengmian had collected a large number of treasures in the secret chamber and obtained a lot of immortal stones. Now, he had more than 20,000 immortal stones in his possession. However, this was the first time he had seen so many immortal stones in a secret chamber. Although the treasures in any of the secret chambers in the Dark Whale hidden vault were rare and priceless treasures, what Chu Fengmian needed the most right now was immortal stones. A large amount of immortal stones would be enough to support Chu Fengmian's advancement and accumulate strength to break through the Deva tribulation. Chu Fengmian looked at the altar and suddenly reached out his hand to grab the immortal stones on the altar. He wanted to take all the immortal stones. Boom! But right at this moment, an explosion suddenly sounded. The restrictive formation around the secret room was shattered by a force, and a gap was suddenly opened. Two figures suddenly flew out from the gap. The two figures flew into the secret chamber and saw the altar in the center of the secret chamber. Their eyes lit up when they saw the countless immortal stones piled up on the altar. So many immortal stones! Someone's here? At this time, the two of them also noticed Chu Fengmian's existence and looked over. When one of the two figures saw Chu Fengmian, he was shocked. "It's you!" Chu Fengmian had seen this figure before. He was the old ancestor of the Seaward sect, the overlooking Sword Sea Emperor. The figure beside him was the old ancestor of the North Sea Palace, the Biling Sea Emperor. The overlooking Sword Sea Emperor's eyes were filled with boundless killing intent when he saw Chu Fengmian. "Damn brat, how dare you steal the sword principal totem? I didn't expect to find you again today. Biling, lend me a hand and kill this man. I'll owe you a favor," the overlooking Sword Sea Emperor roared. Suddenly, sword light flashed and countless sword edges slashed towards Chu Fengmian. "This brat is the first one to enter the Dark Whale secret chamber? I'm afraid he has collected a lot of good stuff." The Northern Mountain Ocean Emperor also looked at Chu Fengmian. Looking at Chu Fengmian's figure, he knew that Chu Fengmian was the first person to enter the Dark Whale hidden treasure. They saw many empty secret chambers as soon as they entered the Dark Whale secret chamber. Chu Fengmian must have taken all the treasures in these secret chambers. The Biling Sea Emperor's eyes were filled with greed. "We're really lucky to have met this brat. He's just a half-step celestial being. How dare he collect the treasures in the Dark Whale secret chamber? He's courting death." The Biling Sea Emperor also attacked the moment the overlooking Sword Sea Emperor attacked. He had no enmity with Chu Fengmian, but Chu Fengmian was the first one to enter the Dark Whale secret chamber. He must have collected a lot of treasures in the Dark Whale secret chamber. He had a reason to kill Chu Fengmian for these treasures. The Biling Sea Emperor used a set of halberd technique. The North Sea Palace's martial technique was the purest Sea Clan halberd technique. A long halberd condensed in his hand and stabbed towards Chu Fengmian. At the same time, the overlooking Sword Sea Emperor also attacked Chu Fengmian with countless sword edges from all directions, blocking Chu Fengmian's escape route. "Brat, it's impossible for you to escape this time. You're going to die here today," the overlooking Sword Sea Emperor sneered. Sword essence erupted from his body and turned into a shocking sword light that slashed towards Chu Fengmian. "Escape? Do you think the two of you are worthy enough for me to escape?" Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with disdain as he watched the trident and the shocking sword light slashing towards him. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's bloodline power erupted. An incomparably huge dragon claw suddenly condensed above Chu Fengmian's head. This dragon claw slammed down abruptly, sweeping away everything in its path. The trident unleashed by the Northern Spirit Ocean Monarch and the shocking sword light unleashed by the Sea Monarch of the Near Sword Ocean were both shattered by the dragon claw. At the same time, the overlooking Sword Sea Emperor and the overlooking Sword Sea Emperor were sent flying by the power of the battle dragon claw. They were severely injured and spat out blood. "You must have a lot of good stuff on you. Since you've delivered yourself to me, I'll take them all. Devour them all. Let's set a small target first. For example, 1 second. Chapter 2036. With a thought, Chu Fengmian condensed his heaven-devouring power and blasted it out, turning it into a huge and deep black hole. "What?" The Biling Ocean Emperor and the Linjian Ocean Emperor were both shocked. They couldn't believe that the two of them couldn't even withstand a single blow from Chu Fengmian. Both of them were Celestial Realm experts. The two Ocean Emperors were famous experts in the vast sea star zone. However, they couldn't even withstand a single blow from Chu Fengmian. "Run!" Both Ocean Emperor Biling and Ocean Emperor Linjian knew that they had kicked an iron plate this time. Originally, when they encountered Chu Fengmian, the two of them thought that they had hit the jackpot. After all, Chu Fengmian was just a little fellow at the half-step sky human stage. In their opinion, they could casually crush Chu Fengmian to death and snatch away the treasures on him. But this time, they had hit a steel plate. Chu Fengmian's power was beyond their imagination. The two ocean emperors looked at each other and were about to flee. Both of them were celestial realm experts. Their escape lights were extremely fast. They flew dozens of miles in an instant and were about to leave the secret chamber. However, although the two of them were fast, Chu Fengmian's attack was even faster. Chu Fengmian activated the heaven-devouring secret skill with a thought. Suddenly, a boundless pulling force swept out. Even the two ocean emperors couldn't resist the boundless pulling force. Their bodies were pulled into the heaven-devouring secret skill and were devoured. As the heaven-devouring secret skill was activated, the bodies of the two ocean emperors were completely crushed. The essence blood of the two ocean emperors was turned into extremely pure spiritual power and poured into Chu Fengmian's body. Both Ocean Emperor Bailing and Ocean Emperor Lin Jian died in Chu Fengmian's hands. They couldn't even withstand a single blow from Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian had encountered the two ocean emperors before he merged with the horn of the black whale, he would have had to fight to defeat them. But now that Chu Fengmian had fused with the horn of the mystic whale, his strength had increased by 3 to 4 times. He didn't need to expend much effort to face an immortal like the Ocean Emperor. He could easily kill the two of them. It's a pity that they were too weak. They didn't have any immortal power. Chu Fengmian shook his head. The two Ocean Emperors had stepped into the first celestial realm. Immortals didn't have immortal power in their bodies. Chu Fengmian could only obtain some spiritual power after killing them. To Chu Fengmian, what he lacked now was immortal energy. Spirit stones were no longer a necessity for him. However, the two Ocean Emperors were experts who had crossed the Deva tribulation. Their pure spiritual energy poured into Chu Fengmian's body and stabilized his power. There are a lot of good things in their empty rings. The two Ocean Emperors died in the sky-devouring secret technique. Their empty rings were now in Chu Fengmian's hands. He opened the empty rings and saw a lot of good things. There were materials, sacred herbs, sacred elixirs, spiritual weapons, and immortal stones. The two of them plundered wantonly after entering the dark whale hidden treasure. They snatched a lot of treasures. Although it wasn't as much as Chu Fengmian, there were still more than 5,000 immortal stones in their empty rings. In addition to the immortal stones collected from the altar, Chu Fengmian now had more than 30,000 immortal stones. Such a large number of celestial stones was simply an astronomical figure in the outside world. Even a genius like Bloody Moon Evil Master, who was born in the sanctuary, could not have such amazing wealth. The entire oceanic sacrificial sect wouldn't have more than that even after thousands of years of accumulation. Of course, such amazing wealth was due to the black whale hidden treasure. Without this dark whale hidden treasure, even with Chu Fengmian's current strength, it would be like a dream for him to obtain so many immortal stones. Chu Fengmian might not encounter such a great opportunity in the future for a long time. Chu Fengmian had to take advantage of this opportunity to collect as many treasures as he could. Boom! Just as Chu Fengmian was about to tear the space apart and look for some undiscovered secret chambers to collect treasures, an earth-shattering roar suddenly resounded. What's going on? Chu Fengmian immediately activated his spiritual consciousness to observe the black whale hidden treasure to see what was going on. Chu Fengmian activated his spiritual consciousness and immediately discovered that the black whale hidden treasure had been cracked open by someone. This crack seemed to be a space tunnel that led to a faraway place. From this crack, countless figures poured into the Xianjing secret treasure. Each of these figures had an extremely powerful aura. They were all experts above the celestial realm. So many experts. Chu Fengmian was shocked when he saw the figures entering the black whale hidden treasure. There were more than 100 celestial realm experts. Chu Fengmian even sensed the strength of some of them. Some of them were not weaker than the Blood Moon Monarch. They were all experts at the peak of the celestial realm and the immortal general realm. There were even some whose auras were stronger than Bloody Moon evil masters. Chu Fengmian sensed a great threat from these people's auras, and his whole body began to tremble. One should know that the Blood Moon Monarch was already an expert in the immortal general realm. The Blood Moon Monarch had the bloodline of one of the 10 celestial demons. It was said to be invincible among those in the same realm. But now there was an existence even stronger than the Blood Moon Monarch. Immortal Marquis, an expert in the profound heaven realm. Chu Fengmian's face changed. In the Daluo star field, Yenluo star field and Azure Dragon star field, the celestial realm was an elusive existence, let alone the profound heaven realm. Chu Fengmian had only seen one profound heaven realm expert before. It was the Yuan Whale Emperor. However, the Yuan Whale Emperor had fallen into madness. He was a lunatic, and could not be considered a true expert in the profound heaven realm. There were a total of 3 mysterious heaven realm experts who had entered the Black Whale hidden treasure. Let's go. Chu Fengmian also felt a sense of danger. Without any hesitation, he hid himself and came to the edge of the Xianjing hidden treasure. Then, he pushed his escape light to the limit and left the chaotic ocean and the Songhai star region. First, he set a small target. For example, 1 second. Remember, book guest residence. Chapter 2037. Chu Fengmian's conveyance light was pushed to the extreme, leaving the Songhai star region and entering the endless starry sky. His conveyance light gradually slowed down. Along the way, Chu Fengmian had witnessed countless battles. A new round of battles had broken out for the treasures in the Black Whale secret vault. This group of people seemed to have come from a saint region to fight for the treasures in the Xianjing secret treasure. After all, the news of the Xianjing secret treasure's opening was known by Blood Moon Monarch, Ocean Monarch Worship, Demon Monarch Slayer, Yen Tiangang and the others. Naturally, others would also know. However, any battle in the Xianjing secret treasure now had nothing to do with Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's harvest in the Xianjing secret treasure this time was bountiful. He obtained a large number of immortal stones, immortal weapons, saint elixirs, and the real treasure in the Xianjing secret treasure, the 3,000 feet long horn of the Xianjing secret treasure. As for the remaining treasures, it was too dangerous for Chu Fengmian to take them now. It was better for him to leave now. Chu Fengmian left the Songhai star region and flew towards the Azure Dragon star region, preparing to return to the 9 domains first. In his mind, Xing Xian woke up, looked at Chu Fengmian and said excitedly, "Chu Fengmian, you've gained a lot this time. The horn of the Xianjing secret treasure. I didn't expect you to have integrated the power of 3 innate divine beasts." Even in Xing Xian's eyes, Chu Fengmian's harvest this time was a great harvest. Xing Xian was in a deep sleep, but he woke up excitedly after realizing that Chu Fengmian had obtained the horn of the Xianjing secret treasure. When he first met Chu Fengmian was just an inconspicuous little guy. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian's strength to advance by leaps and bounds in such a short time. He was already close to the celestial realm. Now, Chu Fengmian's true strength was stronger than the immortal realm, immortal warrior realm and demon immortal realm warriors. Just now, the Linjian Ocean Monarch and the Bailing Ocean Monarch were 2 ocean monarchs in the immortal realm. In front of Chu Fengmian, they were almost powerless and were easily killed by Chu Fengmian. Xing Xian, who had witnessed all of this, sighed emotionally. Now that you have such an opportunity, you may have a chance to do what the myriad beasts couldn't. Myriad beasts? Chu Fengmian was puzzled when he heard Xing Xian mention a name he had never heard before. Who? Oh? It seems that you don't know? Xing Xian seemed to recall for a moment before opening his mouth to speak. But it's no wonder. The age of beasts was thousands of years ago. There aren't many records of that era in the current era. The famous Lord of Beasts is no longer known by anyone. The Lord. A sovereign with this name? Asked. Of course, the sovereign realm wasn't the realm above the immortal emperor realm, but the peak of the immortal emperor realm. Only those at the peak of the immortal emperor realm were qualified to be called sovereigns. Chu Fengmian knew this because his master, the Lord of the Sword Tao, was actually a ruler. Since ancient times, no one could surpass the ruler of the Sword Tao in terms of attainments in the Sword Tao. That was why he was respectfully called the Lord of the Sword Tao. It seemed that the Lord of Myriad Beasts was also a sovereign, one that existed tens of millions of years ago. That era was incomparably distant from the current era. It was an era when hundreds of races existed in great numbers and the desolate era hadn't been broken yet. Yes, it seems that you know some things. You actually know about sovereigns. The Lord of Myriad Beasts was a sovereign, and the first sovereign of the immortal Tao era. Xing Xian said. The first sovereign of the immortal Tao era? Chu Fengmian was a little surprised. The immortal Tao era was too ancient, tens of millions of years ago. Even though Chu Fengmian had read countless ancient texts, there were only a few descriptions of that era. It was said that the most ancient era was the beginning of the primordial chaos, the era of innate divine beasts. The sovereigns of that era were all born from the primordial Qi. The builder tree, the innate divine beasts, and the 10 heavenly demons were all the main characters of that era. Later on, these existences fell one by one, leaving behind hundreds of races in the world. The devil race, the human race, the demonic beasts, the strange beasts, the desolate beasts, and the sea race. All of them gradually rose in that era. During the 100 Races era, the human race was still one of the 100 races. Even among the 100 races, the human race wasn't considered tyrannical. Later on, the birth of the first immortal emperor allowed the human race to grow stronger and stronger, and finally established the immortal Tao era. The era that Chu Fengmian lived in was still the immortal Tao era. However, Chu Fengmian had never heard of the first sovereign of the immortal Tao era. However, to be able to become a sovereign of an era, he was definitely an incomparably tyrannical existence. Moreover, in the early stages of the immortal Tao era, the 100 races were still tyrannical in strength. To be able to become a sovereign of that era was definitely an invincible figure that could sweep the world. However, the sovereigns of that era were indeed too distant. They no longer had anything to do with the current era. For example, Chu Fengmian had never heard of the Lord of all beasts despite having read countless ancient texts. He hadn't heard of this name from Xing Xian. Chu Fengmian didn't know that there was such a tyrannical sovereign in the ancient era. However, for some reason, Xing Xian had mentioned this name now. Chu Fengmian didn't speak. He continued to wait for Xing Xian to continue. Do you know that you're not the only one who's transcended the heaven-defying tribulation? Xing Xian didn't continue speaking. Instead, he changed the topic and asked Chu Fengmian. Yes. Chu Fengmian nodded. Although he didn't know who had transcended the heaven-defying tribulation, there had been more than 10 million monstrous geniuses since ancient times. There were countless geniuses more dazzling than Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian wouldn't be surprised if someone had transcended the heaven-defying tribulation. In fact, if Chu Fengmian was the only person to have transcended the heaven-defying tribulation since ancient times, he would be surprised instead. The Lord of all beasts is actually the first person to transcend the heaven-defying tribulation. Furthermore, his attainments on this path were even greater than yours. Do you know how many innate divine beasts the Lord of all beasts controlled back then? Let's set a small target first. For example, 1 second. Remember, book guest residence. Chapter 2038. How many? Chu Fengmian frowned. Judging from Xing Xian's tone, The Lord of Beasts had once integrated with the primordial qi of the innate divine beasts and controlled their power. However, there weren't many records of such a character in the later generations. Chu Fengmian couldn't make a guess. However, Xing Xian didn't keep Chu Fengmian in suspense and continued. The Lord of Beasts has actually only controlled 2 types of innate divine beasts' power of origin. How is this possible? Only 2 types? Chu Fengmian asked in disbelief. The Lord of Beasts was a sovereign, the first sovereign of the immortal Tao era. There was no need to doubt his strength. The current Chu Fengmian wasn't even an ant in front of the Lord of Beasts. The Lord of Beasts could kill millions or even tens of millions of Chu Fengmian with a single move. How could such a heaven-defying character only control 2 types of innate divine beasts' power? How could he be inferior to the current Chu Fengmian? One had to know that Chu Fengmian had already controlled the power of origin of the heaven-devouring beast, primogenitor Tianlong and Xian Jing. How could the Lord of Beasts, the first sovereign of the immortal Tao era and a peak immortal emperor, only control 2 types of power? That's right, there are only 2 types. And that's only because the Lord of all beasts is strong enough to suppress the 2 types of pre-heaven god-beast power within his body. That's why he hasn't suffered any backlash. Xing Xian said slowly. Apart from the Lord of Beasts, there hasn't been any other demon immortals in history who have controlled more than 2 types of innate divine beasts' power. The rest of the heaven-defying tribulations have only controlled 1 type of power of origin. Aren't there demon immortals who have 2 or even 3 types of innate divine beasts' bloodlines? Chu Fengmian couldn't help but ask. Although Chu Fengmian had never seen one, his strength was getting stronger and stronger. He had also heard more and more rumors about geniuses. It was said that a genius could have 2 or 3 kinds of innate divine beast bloodlines. There were even existences here. Moreover, he hadn't heard of any backlash from the collision of these powers. Bloodline isn't equal to origin. In fact, even if a demon immortal can obtain the innate divine beast's bloodline, he can only use the brute force within it. As for the true origin power, he can only control it after passing the heaven-defying tribulation and integrating the power of Genesis. Xing Xian said. The Lord of Beasts' bloodline power can be easily suppressed, but the origin power is the collision of 2 types of origin power. Origin power of the 2 types of innate divine beasts' origin. In the ancient times there were heaven-defying experts who tried to integrate 2 types of innate divine beasts' origin power. Was. He. Ned is. It. Origin. SS. Even an immortal emperor couldn't suppress the power of 2 types of innate divine beasts' origin power and exploded? Chu Fengmian's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He didn't expect the power of Genesis to be so dangerous. Even if he became an immortal emperor, his body would explode if he wasn't careful. Moreover, once this absolute beginning strength merged into one's body, it would be impossible to remove it. Even if one self-destructed one's physical body, it would be useless. Once one was unable to suppress it, it would erupt. Regardless of how powerful an expert was, only death awaited them. But I don't feel any conflict between the 2 types of innate divine beasts' origin power. Chu Fengmian said with a frown. Whether it was the immortal emperor or the lord of all beasts, both of them had died from the collision of the innate divine beast's origin energy into their bodies. In the end, they could not suppress it and exploded. However, Chu Fengmian had passed the heaven-defying tribulation and gained control of the 2 types of origin power, Tianlong and the heaven-devouring beast. Not long ago, when he merged with the 3,000 feet long horn of the black whale in the black whale hidden vault, he did not feel any conflict between these forces. It went so smoothly that Chu Fengmian didn't think of it as a dangerous thing. However, based on Xing Xian's words, Chu Fengmian's actions were extremely dangerous. Not even the sovereign lord had dared to do such a thing. Yet, Chu Fengmian had done it. That's why I find it strange. The innate divine beast's origin powers calmed down when they integrated into your body. You can use any type of origin you want. It's really strange. Xing Xian was born in an incomparably ancient era. Therefore, he knew many of the secrets of the ancient era. He was very knowledgeable, but he still couldn't understand how Chu Fengmian could so easily merge with the origins of 3 innate divine beasts without suffering any backlash. Actually, you don't just have 3 strands of primordial qi in your body, but 4. That divine tree, the legendary builder tree, is also formed from primordial qi. It's a tyrannical creature born from it. Now that the divine tree has fused with your body, it's equivalent to fusing with 4 strands of primordial qi. Xing Xian said after a glance. In fact, I had already noticed this when you were undergoing the heaven-defying tribulation. However, I wasn't sure at that time, and didn't know if it was due to some special opportunity. But now, it seems like your body is indeed very strange, to be able to contain so much primordial qi. This is something that has never happened since ancient times. Strange. Chu Fengmian frowned. He'd always thought that he was just an ordinary person. He didn't even have the slightest bit of unique bloodline when he was born. In the beginning, he cultivated the battle dragon technique and condensed the ancient battle dragon bloodline. After a series of fortuitous encounters, Chu Fengmian had his current achievement. Chu Fengmian never felt that there was anything strange about his body, nor did he suddenly have any power. His current strength was the result of Chu Fengmian's numerous battles of life and death. He had a narrow escape from death, and the opportunities he had obtained. The only strange thing was that Chu Fengmian had reincarnated. Apart from Chu Fengmian, no one else seemed to have heard of reincarnation. Chu Fengmian had only heard of reincarnation when the reincarnation sect was mentioned. Chapter 2039. Chu Fengmian had met a young monk from the reincarnation sect, Monk Xuanlun, in the Pure Land Buddhist temple. Initially, Chu Fengmian wanted to capture Monk Xuanlun and see if he could find out the secret of Chu Fengmian's second life from him. However, Monk Xuanlun was too cunning. Chu Fengmian didn't find a chance to capture him until the end. The search for the secret of Chu Fengmian's second life came to an end. Chu Fengmian had read a lot of ancient books since he came to the vast sea star field. He had obtained the memories of many masters. However, the more powerful a person was, the more he felt that it was impossible for someone to live a second life. For some weaker cultivators, monster gods, and even ordinary people who had never cultivated, the lower their realm, the less they knew. Only then would they believe in the rumor of living a second life. However, once one stepped into the Emperor realm, or even ascended to the immortal realm and stepped into the heaven realm, there was practically no powerhouse who believed in this. This was because, since ancient times, there had been countless sovereigns and immortal emperors, but no one had ever succeeded in being reborn a second time. Even rulers, immortal emperors, and even innate divine beasts couldn't do it. It was impossible for others to do it. However, Chu Fengmian did it. Even his second life didn't have much to do with Chu Fengmian. In his previous life, he wasn't even a cultivator and had no strength. However, when the Sword Dao sect was besieged, Chu Fengmian jumped off the cliff to commit suicide. He didn't know why he was reincarnated and lived a second life. Although Chu Fengmian said that he had experienced it, he didn't know what had happened. Now that Xing Xian suddenly mentioned Chu Fengmian's strangeness, Chu Fengmian could only think of this. Xing Xian had watched Chu Fengmian grow bit by bit to his current strength when Chu Fengmian was extremely weak. Although Xing Xian had been sleeping most of the time, he was well aware of Chu Fengmian's increase in strength. In the eyes of Blood Moon Monarch, Ocean Monarch, and the others, Chu Fengmian was indeed an extremely strange cultivator. He had such heaven-defying strength when he was only a half-step Heaven Realm Master. However, these oddities were nothing in Xing Xian's eyes. He was well aware of all the opportunities that Chu Fengmian had obtained. That was why he found it strange that Chu Fengmian was able to integrate so much primordial qi. Xing Xian, have you heard of reincarnating and living a second life? Chu Fengmian thought for a moment and asked. Chu Fengmian had never told anyone about this secret. He had only told Qing Luan, who was on the verge of death, to a wisp of consciousness left behind by his senior brother Jian Ling. Even Xing Xian, who had been following Chu Fengmian, knew that this was the first time he revealed this secret. Reincarnating? Living a second life. This rumor has indeed been circulating since ancient times, but it's just a rumor made up by some idle people. Xing heard Chu Fengmian said. His attitude was that he didn't believe that reincarnating and living a second life existed in this world. Don't tell me you've heard about the Samsara sect? They're talking about reincarnation and rebirth. Those old monks of the Samsara sect are nothing but a smokescreen. The so-called reincarnation and rebirth of the Samsara sect is just a technique to pass down their powers and memories to the next generation. Some old monks who are on the verge of death can pass down their powers and memories to the next generation. However, in reality, it's a different person. Even if they inherit the power and memories, it's just an inheritance. It's not considered reincarnation. However, because the power and memories are completely passed on, the person will become very similar to those old monks. In the end, it's just a high-level secret technique. Didn't you see such a secret technique in the Sacred Dragon secret realm? Xing Xian explained. The secret of the Samsara sect could be said to be extremely vague even in the ancient records. When it was mentioned, it could only be written in a few strokes. It was extremely mysterious. However, Xing Xian's casual words revealed all the secret. So this is the reincarnation technique of the Samsara sect. After hearing Xing Xian's words, Chu Fengmian was enlightened. The secret technique of the Sacred Dragon secret realm also existed. In fact, the secret technique of the Sacred Dragon secret realm existed in all the major sections. It was just that the secret technique of the Sacred Dragon secret realm differed in level. For example, the secret technique of the Sacred Dragon secret realm only inherited power and martial arts, as well as some knowledge. However, the secret technique of the Samsara sect inherited all the memories. When the disciples of the Samsara sect who inherited the memories went out, others would think that they were reincarnated old monks. After hearing Xing Xian's words, Chu Fengmian was both happy and sad. He was happy because he knew the secret of the Samsara sect. It was an eye-opener for him. The sad thing was that his second life as a human probably had nothing to do with the Samsara sect. Furthermore, with Xing Xian's knowledge, it was said that reincarnation and rebirth as a human for 2 lives were illusory. Chu Fengmian wanted to find out why he reincarnated and lived 2 lives, but it would be more difficult than he had imagined. Previously, Chu Fengmian still had the Samsara sect as his target. However, this target had disappeared. If Chu Fengmian hadn't reincarnated himself, he wouldn't have believed that this was true. Chu Fengmian looked ordinary, but he didn't know the 2 secrets of his body. This made Chu Fengmian frown. However, Chu Fengmian soon stopped thinking about it. Chu Fengmian couldn't figure it out now because he wasn't strong enough. When Chu Fengmian stepped into the Celestial Realm, or even the Xian Heaven Realm, or the Celestial Realm, and became a high and mighty immortal emperor, these secrets might be easily solved. It was meaningless for Chu Fengmian to think about it now. While Chu Fengmian and Xing Xian were talking, Chu Fengmian had already left the Songhai Star Zone for the Azure Dragon Star Zone. He was preparing to return to the 9 domains. It took Chu Fengmian 3 days to travel from the Azure Dragon Star Zone to the Songhai Star Zone. However, Chu Fengmian's current strength was much stronger than before. His current strength was dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than before. During the 2-hour conversation, Chu Fengmian had already left the Shanghai star zone. He traveled through the starry sky and was about to reach the Azure Dragon star zone. By the way, Xing Xian, with my current strength, I should be able to control the bloodlust demon sword, right? Chapter 2040. Chu Fengmian's heart skipped a beat. When Chu Fengmian had first obtained the bloodlust demon sword, it had been sealed in his body because his strength had been insufficient. It was only when Chu Fengmian broke into the Six Paths Demon Gate and faced the heavenly demon supremacy that he had no choice but to use the demon sword. However, Chu Fengmian had to pay a great price at that time. He was seriously injured and ended up in the ancient monster continent. However, Chu Fengmian's strength was no longer the same as before. His strength was even greater than that of an ordinary celestial realm expert. Even if the bloodlust demon sword was a demon sword, Chu Fengmian was confident that he could control it. The bloodlust demon sword was the most terrifying spiritual sword that Chu Fengmian knew of. Chu Fengmian originally thought that the bloodlust demon sword was a spiritual artifact, but now that he had seen a true immortal artifact, he understood that even some so-called immortal artifacts were not as powerful as the bloodlust demon sword. The first time Chu Fengmian used the bloodlust demon sword, he killed the heavenly demon supremacy with a single strike. If he could truly control the bloodlust demon sword, Chu Fengmian's strength would become countless times stronger. Chu Fengmian had forgotten that Xing Xian had been unconscious all this time. Now that Xing Xian had awakened, Chu Fengmian suddenly asked, "Control the bloodlust demon sword? With your current strength, it's about time." Xing Xian thought for a moment and said, "However, you should know that to control the bloodlust demon sword, you have to pass his test." Test? Chu Fengmian frowned. He really didn't know what kind of test was required to control the bloodlust demon sword. The bloodlust demon sword was a famous demon sword in the 9 regions. Every previous owner of the bloodlust demon sword had become a sword demon that only knew how to kill. Moreover, their strength was extremely terrifying. In the history of the 9 regions, many famous geniuses had died to the bloodlust demon sword. However, he had never heard of any test. However, the people who had truly grasped the blood-slaughtering demon sword were all, without exception, madmen who only knew how to kill. As such, there were simply no records of the blood-slaughtering demon sword left behind. Actually, this sword is not a demon sword. The so-called demon sword is merely a result of those people being unable to pass the trial. In the end, they were corroded by the demonic will and entered a state of madness. Xing Xian's tone was filled with disdain. He was extremely displeased with the bloodlust demon sword being called a demon sword. Only those who fail the test will be corroded by the devil will? Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. With your current strength, you are indeed qualified to take the test. However, you are still unable to go to the test ground. Xing Xian said. Testing ground. Where is it? Chu Fengmian frowned. If he wanted to control the Bloodslayer demon sword, he actually needed to go through a test, and he even needed to go to a test ground? Moreover, it was a place that Chu Fengmian couldn't go to now. Tianjiu domain. Xing Xian said. Devour, the test is in the Tianjiu domain. If you go there, I can take you there. But now, the Tianjiu domain is sealed. You have no chance to go there. In the Tianjiu domain? The Bloodslayer demon sword came from the Tianjiu domain? Chu Fengmian said with slight surprise. He had guessed that the origin of the Bloodslayer demon sword was absolutely amazing. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so powerful. Even the current Chu Fengmian didn't dare to control the Bloodslayer demon sword rashly. The last time he used the Bloodslayer demon sword, he had to pay a great price. Chu Fengmian almost died. However, the fact that the Bloodslayer demon sword came from the mysterious Tianjiu domain still surprised Chu Fengmian. Of course. In fact, most of the inheritances of the Tianjiu domain come from the Tianjiu domain. For example, The current 7 sects of the Tianjiu domain are inseparable from the Tianjiu domain. Your master, the master of Sword Dao, is actually a giant in the Tianjiu domain. Xing Xian said. He knew more secrets than Chu Fengmian. He even knew a lot of things about the mysterious Tianjiu domain. After all, the Bloodslayer demon sword came from the Tianjiu domain. The Tianjiu domain has disappeared for 10,000 years. There is no way to enter the Tianjiu domain now. Chu Fengmian thought for a moment and said, although he wanted to control the Bloodslayer demon sword, he had to go to the Tianjiu domain to pass the test. The passage to the Tianjiu domain had disappeared for 10,000 years. Chu Fengmian couldn't find a way to go to the Tianjiu domain, let alone go to the Tianjiu domain to pass the test. As a result, Chu Fengmian had no way to control the Bloodslayer demon sword. Although Chu Fengmian could try to control the Bloodslayer demon sword by force, Chu Fengmian was worried that he would become a madman who only knew how to kill like the Bloodslayer demon sword of the past. It's just that there is no way in the Tianjiu domain. It shouldn't be difficult to find the way to the Tianjiu domain in the other 3 sacred realms, Xing Xian said calmly. Moreover, the drastic change in the Tianjiu domain is actually a sign that the passage to the Tianjiu domain is about to open. It shouldn't be long before the Tianjiu domain appears. The Tianjiu domain is about to appear. This news shocked Chu Fengmian, and his expression changed drastically. The emergence of Tianjiu domain was an earth-shattering event, especially for Chu Fengmian and Sword Dao sect. It was an incomparably dangerous thing. The Sword Dao sect and Chu Fengmian, the disciple of the Sword Dao sect, had always been a thorn in the side of the Tianjiu domain. Jian Ling had also warned Chu Fengmian to be careful of the people of the Tianjiu domain. The Tianjiu domain had never appeared. Chu Fengmian didn't care about the Tianjiu domain at first, but now that he heard Xing Xian's words, the drastic change in the Tianjiu domain was a sign of the Tianjiu domain's appearance? Didn't that mean that the Tianjiu domain was about to appear? I have to hurry back to the Tianjiu domain. Chu Fengmian's escape light suddenly accelerated. Once the Tianjiu domain appeared, the Sword Dao sect would bear the brunt. Chu Fengmian had to rush back to the Tianjiu domain and arrange everything to move the Sword Dao sect out of the Tianjiu domain. The Tianjiu domain was once one of the sacred domains. It was even rumored that the strength of the Tianjiu domain was above the current 3 sacred domains. With the current strength of the Sword Dao sect, it was impossible to resist the Tianjiu domain. A few celestial realm powerhouses were enough to sweep the Sword Dao sect. Although celestial realm powerhouses were extremely rare in a place like the Daluo star field in the Tianjiu domain, there were probably many of them. The scene of hundreds of celestial realm powerhouses flying out of the Xianjing hidden treasury was still vivid in Chu Fengmian's mind. Chapter 2041. This was just the tip of the iceberg. If Tianjiu domain really appeared, Sword Dao sect would definitely be greatly affected. Don't be so anxious. The gate of Tianjiu domain has been closed for tens of thousands of years. It won't open in a short period of time. Moreover, with your current strength, you can deal with ordinary immortal realm and immortal warrior realm demon immortals. But if you encounter immortal generals, profound heaven realm and immortal marquee realm demon immortals, even if you rush back to the 9 regions now, it will be useless. Xing Xian's words calmed Chu Fengmian down. Indeed, it didn't matter to Chu Fengmian when Tianjiu domain would appear. What mattered was whether Chu Fengmian could protect Sword Dao sect from the experts of Tianjiu domain. Only with strength could he protect Sword Dao sect. Without strength, everything was just empty talk. Go into seclusion and consolidate your realm before returning to the 9 regions. Chu Fengmian's eyes were extremely cold. His figure flickered and entered the depths of the void. Xing Xian's words reminded Chu Fengmian. Now that he had returned to the 9 regions, he needed to have enough strength to protect Sword Dao sect. Without strength, everything was just empty talk. This time, Chu Fengmian had gained a lot from the Dark Whale secret treasure. He had obtained many saint elixirs and heavenly artifacts, but he didn't have time to count them. After all these gains were converted into Chu Fengmian's strength, Chu Fengmian's strength could be further improved. Chu Fengmian broke through the void and came to the depths of the void. This was a place that even ordinary celestial realm experts wouldn't set foot in. Now, Chu Fengmian had left vast sea star region and came to Azure Dragon Star region. In the entire Azure Dragon Star region, there was no other celestial realm expert besides Mad Dragon Emperor. Chu Fengmian came to the depths of the void and was very safe. He wouldn't be disturbed. But just in case, Chu Fengmian still set up countless restriction arrays to protect the surroundings. These restriction arrays couldn't be broken silently even by immortal warrior realm demon immortals. After Chu Fengmian set up everything, he sat on the ground. Chu Fengmian took out countless sacred elixirs, sacred medicines, rare items, and spiritual weapons from the empty ring in front of him. These items were obtained by Chu Fengmian from the Black Whale hidden treasure. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had killed the Northern Mountain Ocean Emperor, the Near Sword Ocean Emperor, and several other Sky Realm experts and obtained their spatial rings. This was not a small harvest. Chu Fengmian had been hunted ever since he sneaked into the sacrificial lake. Then, he was swallowed into the Yuan Whale Emperor's stomach. He was only halfway through his cultivation when he was interrupted. This time, Chu Fengmian entered the Black Whale hidden treasure and gained so much. It was a good time for him to cultivate in seclusion and consolidate his strength. Immortal stones. Chu Fengmian looked at the countless saint elixirs, heavenly wonders, and so on. His first glance landed on the pile of immortal stones. Now there were more than 30,000 immortal stones in Chu Fengmian's hands. They were piled up like a small mountain in front of him. The first thing Chu Fengmian wanted to refine was these immortal stones. He wanted to use the immortal energy to refine and upgrade his immortal true body. Chu Fengmian's immortal true body was already at 40%. It had already evolved to the next level after devouring the immortal energy. However, the remaining 60% had not evolved yet because of the lack of immortal energy. Now that Chu Fengmian had obtained a large number of immortal stones, the first thing he wanted to do was to refine his immortal true body and let the 129,600 immortal crystals in his body evolve. The immortal true body was the key to Chu Fengmian's survival. Without the immortal true body, Chu Fengmian would have died many times over. Although strength was important, survival was more important. If it wasn't for Chu Fengmian's heaven-defying survival skills, he wouldn't have dared to sneak into the sacrificial lake. Immortal stones flew out one by one as Chu Fengmian waved his hand. Suddenly, they shattered beside Chu Fengmian and turned into an extremely pure immortal energy. At the same time, a huge black hole appeared above Chu Fengmian's head. The sky-devouring secret technique was in operation. Immortal energy was devoured into Chu Fengmian's body. The remaining 60% of immortal crystals that had yet to evolve began to devour the immortal energy madly when they sensed the immortal energy pouring into Chu Fengmian's body. After devouring a large amount of immortal energy, the immortal crystals began to evolve. Countless ancient characters appeared on their surfaces. Chu Fengmian didn't understand these ancient characters, but he could feel that they contained an extremely powerful force. The immortal crystals began to evolve one after another after devouring the immortal energy. Moreover, it wasn't just the unevolved immortal crystals. The 40% of immortal crystals that had already evolved after devouring the immortal energy also began to devour immortal energy. Although the 40% of immortal crystals had already evolved, the amount of immortal energy they had obtained wasn't much. They had only barely evolved and hadn't reached a perfect state. Now that Chu Fengmian had so many immortal stones in his hands, he certainly wouldn't be stingy. A large number of immortal stones shattered beside Chu Fengmian and turned into pure immortal energy that poured into Chu Fengmian's body. In just half an hour, Chu Fengmian had devoured a total of 5,000 immortal stones to transform the 129,600 immortal crystals. Spending 5,000 immortal stones to extract immortal energy was something that even the Ocean Monarch or the Blood Moon Monarch wouldn't dare to do. However, Chu Fengmian had obtained more than 30,000 immortal stones from the Dark Whale hidden treasure. Although 5,000 immortal stones wasn't a small number, Chu Fengmian was willing to spend them. Moreover, these 5,000 immortal stones weren't wasted. After being tempered by immortal energy, each of the 129,600 immortal crystals' power was countless times greater than before. Now that the 129,600 immortal crystals had formed a defense, even an immortal general would have to use a killer move to break it. As for immortals, immortal warriors, and monster deities, they might not be able to break through the defense of the immortal true body even if they used all their killer move. The last immortal crystal has evolved. Chu Fengmian's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. Among the 129,600 immortal crystals, the last immortal crystal had also devoured enough immortal energy and started to evolve. The evolution of the last immortal crystal also meant that Chu Fengmian's immortal crystal had reached a higher level. First, he set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, book guest residence. Chapter 2042. There were strong and weak immortal true bodies and different realms. Chu Fengmian's immortal true body had evolved again and reached the third level of the immortal true body. Although Chu Fengmian didn't know how the realms of the immortal true body were divided, he knew that every time he advanced, he would advance by one realm. After condensing the immortal true body, Chu Fengmian's immortal true body had evolved twice. Now, Chu Fengmian's immortal true body should have reached the third level. Every evolution of the immortal true body was a transformation. The 129,600 immortal crystals in Chu Fengmian's body had all evolved and condensed. Chu Fengmian sensed that the ancient characters condensed from the immortal crystals were like the eyes of an array, forming a great array within Chu Fengmian's body. With a thought from Chu Fengmian, this great array was activated. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's strength rose by several folds. The aura on his body also rose steadily. If he activated the formation, Chu Fengmian's strength would increase by at least 50%. This was already an incomparably terrifying number. It should be noted that Chu Fengmian's current strength was enough to easily kill demon immortals of the Celestial Realm, Immortal General Realm, and Immortal Warrior Realm. When facing demon immortals at the peak of the Celestial Realm or Immortal General Realm, Chu Fengmian could contend with them and escape unscathed. But if Chu Fengmian's strength suddenly increased by 50% at this time, that Immortal General Realm demon immortal martial artist could be seriously injured or even killed by Chu Fengmian in a single blow if he was careless. Chu Fengmian's strength was already close to the Immortal General Realm. If his strength suddenly soared by 50% at this time, even if the opponent was an Immortal General Realm martial artist or demon immortal, they might not be able to react in time and be killed by Chu Fengmian in one move. Of course, all this was just Chu Fengmian's speculation. Chu Fengmian had never really fought with demon immortals of the Immortal General Realm. Last time, he was able to scheme against the Blood Moon Monarch and force the Blood Moon Monarch to self-destruct because of the horn of the Black Whale. It wasn't Chu Fengmian's strength alone. Even now, Chu Fengmian had fused with the horn of the mysterious whale, and his immortal true body had reached the third level. If he were to face the Blood Moon Monarch in his prime, he would not be able to gain any advantage. In fact, if they were to fight, Chu Fengmian would be in great danger. The demon deities of the Immortal General Realm were completely different from the demon deities of the Immortal Realm and the Immortal Warrior Realm. They were immortal energy and their strength was unfathomable. Previously, Chu Fengmian had set up such a scheme to kill the Blood Moon Monarch, but the Blood Moon Monarch had escaped. Before Chu Fengmian truly fought with an immortal general realm expert alone, Chu Fengmian couldn't guarantee that he would win. However, although Chu Fengmian was pleasantly surprised by the formation condensed by the third level of his immortal true body, he soon discovered that the power of the formation could only last for a few breaths. After about 5 breaths, the power of the formation would disappear. Obviously, Chu Fengmian's immortal crystals hadn't reached the level where he could condense the formation completely. If he exerted all his strength, it could only last for 5 breaths. However, Chu Fengmian was satisfied. This was a pleasant surprise. Moreover, even if it could only last for 5 breaths, in a battle between demon deities at Chu Fengmian's level, 5 breaths was enough to determine the winner. The formation formed by the immortal crystals was also Chu Fengmian's trump card. He would only use it at a critical moment. The primordial sword and the demonic will in the demon emperor's heart can't be dispelled in a short time. Chu Fengmian originally wanted to use the colored glaze clean water to dispel the primordial sword and the demonic will in the demon emperor's heart. However, even if Chu Fengmian threw the 2 treasures into the pond of colored glaze clean water, the demonic will on the treasures was dispelled at an extremely slow rate. After several hours, only a small part of the demonic will was dispelled. Moreover, the amount of colored glaze clean water consumed was astronomical. In these few hours, 3 jade bottles of colored glaze clean water had been consumed to dispel the demonic will on the 2 treasures. Even the Ocean Emperor would be distressed to spend colored glaze clean water like this. However, the amount of colored glaze clean water that Chu Fengmian had plundered this time was the size of a small lake. Chu Fengmian could completely bear such a consumption. Chu Fengmian placed the demon emperor's heart and the primordial sword into the colored glaze clean water. Then, he closed the empty ring and let the colored glaze clean water slowly dispel the demonic will on them. Chu Fengmian sat in place with his eyes closed. His strength had undergone an earth-shattering change after coming to the Songhai Star Zone. This made Chu Fengmian suddenly think of a new sword technique. Chu Fengmian couldn't comprehend it before, but he should be able to now. This was the 3rd move of the first sword technique left behind by the first sword emperor. Before Chu Fengmian left the 9 regions, the sword spirit of the primordial sword, Elder Fan, had given Chu Fengmian a sword manual. What was recorded in the sword codex was the number 1 sword technique created by the number 1 sword emperor. Chu Fengmian had already comprehended the first move of the first sword technique, the 3 Suns Scorching Sword, and the second move, the 4 Directions Hurricane Sword. However, according to Elder Fan, the 3rd style was much more powerful than the first 2 styles. Only when Chu Fengmian stepped into the celestial realm would he be able to comprehend and perform the 3rd style of the sword technique. Although Chu Fengmian hadn't stepped into the celestial realm yet, his current strength was already more powerful than most celestial realm martial artists and demon gods. He could indeed try to comprehend the 3rd move of the first sword technique. Chu Fengmian had a deep understanding of the power of the first sword technique. The first sword technique, the 9 profound sword technique, and the 9 moves of the primordial ancestor were Chu Fengmian's most powerful trump cards and also his killing move. The first sword technique was created by the first sword emperor, an immortal emperor. Its power was naturally not limited to this. The next few moves of the first sword technique were even more powerful than the previous one. Chapter 2043. If Chu Fengmian could comprehend the 3rd move of the first sword technique, his strength would improve by leaps and bounds. Chu Fengmian looked at the sword code and flipped it open. There were no words in it. It was a wordless book. However, Chu Fengmian knew that the sword techniques recorded in the sword code could only be comprehended by those who were qualified to cultivate it. If one couldn't meet the requirements of the sword code, they wouldn't be able to see a single word. In order to display the sword techniques recorded in the sword code, one had to inject sword intent into it. Sword intent. A shocking sword intent burst out from Chu Fengmian's back. If Chu Fengmian was in some other continents, the martial artists and demon deities of the continents would be able to feel the sword intent clearly. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian was in the depths of the void, a place where no one could enter. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had already set up layers of restriction arrays to prevent the sword intent from leaking out. The sword intent was like a ray of light that was injected into the sword code. Suddenly, images appeared on the sword code. The images recorded the scene of a figure holding a spiritual sword. The power of the sword burned the heavens and earth and destroyed countless wild beasts. Chu Fengmian had seen the image once before. It was the content of the Three Suns blazing sword. Chu Fengmian had already learned the Three Suns blazing sword long ago. Naturally, he didn't need to look at it again. He continued to inject sword intent into the sword code. Soon, images appeared again. This time, the image showed the number 1 Sword Emperor using the Four Directions Hurricane Sword. Chu Fengmian had already learned these two swordsmanship. It was not difficult for Chu Fengmian to display these two swordsmanship from the swordsmanship manual. Chu Fengmian was concerned about the image that appeared next. Boundless sword intent condensed from Chu Fengmian's back and injected into the sword code. Such a tyrannical and boundless sword intent couldn't be withstood by a Sky Realm expert. However, it was unknown how the sword code was created. It could actually withstand such a tyrannical sword intent so easily. Time passed second by second. In this sword manual, there were still only images of the Three Suns blazing sword and the Four Directions hurricane sword. The third sword technique did not appear for a long time. However, Chu Fengmian wasn't in a hurry. He was confident that it wouldn't be a problem for him to comprehend the third move of the first sword principle with his current strength. After half an hour, an image suddenly appeared in front of him. In this image, a figure seemed to be standing on an endless ocean, with no end in sight. In front of him were hundreds of millions of demons. That figure was the number 1 Sword Emperor. Chu Fengmian took a glance and was suddenly stunned. He had thought that the number 1 Sword Emperor was standing on the endless ocean, but upon closer inspection, Chu Fengmian could see that the number 1 Sword Emperor was in the void. The boundless ocean beneath his feet was formed from the tip of his sword. This boundless ocean was actually formed by swordsmanship. Endless black water sword. Chu Fengmian heard the voice of the number 1 Sword Emperor. In the next moment, the tip of the sword in his hand moved. The boundless ocean turned into monstrous waves and surged towards the demons in front of him. The seawater was no ordinary seawater. It was seawater that contained boundless sword intent. All of the demons were crushed by the wave. None of them survived. Millions of demons died in the hands of the number 1 Sword Emperor. It's too terrifying, Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. Even though it wasn't the first time Chu Fengmian saw such a scene, he was still shocked every time he saw it. How powerful was the number 1 Sword Emperor to be able to kill millions of demons with a single sword move? Especially those demons, they weren't weak. Chu Fengmian felt that with his current strength, he might not be able to defeat those powerful demons. However, under the number 1 Sword Emperor's sword move, all the demons, regardless of their strength, were no different from ants. They were easily killed. If Chu Fengmian were to face the tip of the sword, he would only die. There was no way he could contend against it. Immortal Emperor, this is an immortal emperor. Although Chu Fengmian had touched the threshold of the celestial realm and stepped into the immortal Tao, he was still very far away from the number 1 Sword Emperor, who was at the peak of the immortal Tao. If an immortal emperor was so terrifying, how terrifying would the sovereigns above the immortal emperor be? Chu Fengmian's master, the Lord of Sword Tao, was a sovereign. The Lord of Sword Tao was called a sovereign. His true strength had probably surpassed the number 1 Sword Emperor. However, the Lord of Sword Tao still fell under the siege of the experts from Tianzhu regions. Even if it was a siege, Chu Fengmian didn't dare to imagine how terrifying the enemies of the Lord of Sword Dao were to be able to kill a sovereign. However, no matter how powerful the people who besieged the Lord of Sword Dao were, Chu Fengmian would definitely avenge the Lord of Sword Dao. This hatred was as deep as the sea and could never be erased. Now that his identity had been exposed, there was no need for him to continue hiding. In any case, the people who besieged the Lord of Sword Dao back then wouldn't let Chu Fengmian off. It was better for Chu Fengmian to strike first and gain the upper hand by eliminating the 7 great sects of the 9 regions. The 7 great sects had been accomplices back then, especially during the attack on the Sword Dao sect. The 7 great sects had been the main force. Chu Fengmian wouldn't let go of the true mastermind behind the siege of the Lord of Sword Dao and the 7 great sects of the 9 regions. When I return to the 9 regions, it will be time to devour. It's time for revenge. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with boundless killing intent, but he quickly calmed down. First, I'll cultivate the eternal mystic water sword. Chu Fengmian suppressed the surging killing intent in his heart and replayed the scene of the number 1 Sword Emperor using the eternal mystic water sword in his mind. Given Chu Fengmian's current strength, he had an eidetic memory of any image he saw. After watching it over and over again, Chu Fengmian also memorized the secrets of the eternal mystic water sword. Chu Fengmian sat on the spot and didn't move for a long time. He had to completely comprehend the eternal mystic water sword before he could use it. Although his body didn't move, Chu Fengmian had already used the eternal mystic water sword thousands of times in his mind. A long time passed. Finally, Chu Fengmian completely comprehended the eternal mystic water sword. Next, it was time to use it. Sword out! Chapter 2044. The ancestral dragon supreme sword was unsheathed in Chu Fengmian's hand. A wisp of blue-green spiritual energy condensed on the tip of the sword. This blue-green spiritual energy was pure water spiritual energy. The first Sword Emperor's swordsmanship was created with the spiritual power of heaven and earth. The 3 suns flame sword was fire, the 4 directions hurricane sword was wind, and the 6 directions mysterious water sword was water. The moment the water spiritual power condensed on Chu Fengmian's blade, Chu Fengmian suddenly drew his sword. The blade flickered as it slashed out. The water spiritual power burst out in an instant. 6 directions mysterious water sword. Chu Fengmian had cultivated the arts of 5 chaotic emperors and cultivated the divine body of ice and fire. His control of water spiritual power was not inferior to those real innate divine bodies. The moment Chu Fengmian's blade slashed out, endless seawater poured out in torrents. The towering waves were thousands of feet high. The towering waves seemed to have no effect on a celestial realm warrior. After all, it was almost a matter of a celestial realm warrior's strength to break the waves. However, this wave wasn't made up of pure seawater. It also contained sword intent. Streaks of sword intent transformed into sword-like blades that fused with the wave. Wherever the waves passed, everything would be destroyed. Bam! In the surrounding space, many of the restrictive formations that Chu Fengmian had just set up had been forcibly shattered. One had to know that even an immortal general would need some time to break through Chu Fengmian's restriction formation. Now, with the 6 directions mysterious water sword, Chu Fengmian was able to break through it. With the addition of the 6 directions mysterious water sword, the restrictive formations in the surrounding were all broken. Good. The power of this sword is far greater than the 4 directions hurricane sword. It's more than 3 times stronger than the 4 directions hurricane sword. Chu Fengmian sensed the power of this sword and revealed a satisfied smile on his face. In theory, the power of each move of the first sword technique had a great difference. However, this was only in theory. The real power was closely related to the warrior who performed it. For example, Chu Fengmian had the divine body of ice and fire. His control over water and fire spiritual power was obviously higher. Therefore, the power of the four directions hurricane sword he used was actually similar to that of the three suns blazing sword. However, the quality of the six directions mysterious water sword was above that of the four directions hurricane sword. In addition, Chu Fengmian's control over water spiritual energy made the power of his sword more powerful than that of the others. This was the reason why the six directions mysterious water sword was so powerful. No matter how good a swordsmanship was, it still needed a person to execute it. The difference was in the comprehension of swordsmanship, and the difference was in the realm. Even if it was the same swordsmanship executed, the difference in power would be like the difference between heaven and earth. The six directions mysterious water sword technique was a sword technique that was extremely suitable for Chu Fengmian. In addition, the six directions mysterious water sword technique was the number one sword technique created by the number one sword emperor. The two complemented each other and had unparalleled power. With the eruption of the power of the immortal real body and the six directions mysterious water sword, I might be able to kill a demon immortal in the immortal general realm if I catch him off guard. Chu Fengmian was in seclusion for two reasons. First, his deathless true body metamorphosed, and the 129,600 shrapnels formed a spell formation that could unleash incredible power for a short period of time. It could be considered a secret magic. In theory, any mystic technique would have huge side effects. The greater the mystic technique that forcefully increased one's strength, the greater the price one had to pay. Therefore, most warriors and fey gods would only use such mystic techniques at critical moments. However, Chu Fengmian's formation of the immortal real body was different from other secret techniques. Chu Fengmian had tried it before. Even if the power was exhausted, it would not have any effect on Chu Fengmian's strength. He only needed to let the 129,600 immortal crystals rest for a period of time to accumulate power. In about 3 or 4 days, Chu Fengmian would be able to activate the formation of the immortal real body once. This secret technique was coveted by many celestial realm and mysterious sky realm experts. It was no wonder that countless geniuses throughout history wanted to practice and condense the immortal real body. The benefits of the immortal real body were much more than Chu Fengmian had imagined. Not only did it strengthen the body and improve the defense, but it could also be used as a secret technique to erupt power. Currently, Chu Fengmian's immortal true body was only at the 3rd level. He sensed that there was still room for improvement above this level. Chu Fengmian's current 3rd level was far from the limit. However, each advancement of the immortal real body required amazing opportunities. The first time Chu Fengmian had advanced his immortal real body was because he had obtained a chaotic sorcerer god elixir, which had directly advanced his immortal real body with its powerful medicinal efficacy. The second time, he had used the immortal power in the immortal stone to transform his immortal real body. Next, if Chu Fengmian wanted to advance his immortal real body again, he would need to find an immortal grade body refining holy object. This kind of holy object was no longer called a celestial wonder object, but a celestial wonder object. Once it stepped into the immortal grade, it would become a celestial wonder object. Chu Fengmian had obtained the 6-winged centipede and used the colored glaze clean water to upgrade it to the 6-winged centipede queen. This 6-winged centipede queen barely qualified as a celestial wonder object. Of course, the 6-winged centipede queen was only a lower-grade treasure among all heavens. Chu Fengmian had to find a heavenly treasure of a higher grade than the 6-winged centipede queen in order to upgrade his immortal true body. This was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Chu Fengmian had obtained one of the 3 treasures in the Pure Land Buddhist temple. Among them, the 6-winged centipede queen and the Tibetan gold essence could barely be considered a celestial wonder object. This kind of treasure was hard to find, even in a second-grade star region like the Shanghai star region. Only by going to the legendary Three Saint regions would one be able to find this kind of treasure. I'll go to the 9 Saint realms. After I'm done, I'll go to the 3 Saint realms. These 3 Saint realms were very attractive to Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian wanted to quickly improve his strength, the only way was to go to the 3 Saint realms. It was rumored to be a prosperous place, a place that countless strong people yearned for. Chu Fengmian now knew why the strong people in the Daluo starfield would leave after they became strong enough and never return. These people had probably gone to the 3 Saint realms. Chu Fengmian settled everything. After the dust had settled, he would set off for the 3 Saint realms. Since this secret technique is activated by an array formed by the immortal crystal, let's call it the immortal secret technique. First, he set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, Book Dweller. Chapter 2045. Chu Fengmian casually came up with a name for the secret technique that activated the immortal crystal and turned it into a formation. It was just a code name, and Chu Fengmian didn't want to waste time thinking about it. Anyway, he couldn't teach this technique to others. It required at least the 3rd level of the immortal true body to perform. Now that Chu Fengmian had come to Shanghai Star Zone, he had seen countless experts, but he had never seen an expert who had condensed an immortal true body. This showed how rare and difficult it was to condense an immortal true body. Even if others knew about this secret technique, it would be useless. Time to go. After another day, Chu Fengmian opened his eyes and slowly stood up. During this day, Chu Fengmian had practiced the 6 directions mysterious water sword several times and consolidated his realm. One day was enough for Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's strength had been accumulated through many battles of life and death. It was solid and solid. He just needed to familiarize himself with it. In Azure Dragon Star Zone, there is a Star Zone teleportation formation to Yanluo Star Zone. From there, I can return to the 9 domains. There was no Star Zone teleportation formation in the 9 domains. Chu Fengmian had to return to Yanluo Star Zone through the Star Zone teleportation formation in Azure Dragon Star Zone and then cross the starry sky to return to the 9 domains. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, crossing 1 or 2 star zones was no problem. However, the distance between Azure Dragon Star Zone and Yanluo Star Zone was dozens of star zones. Even with Chu Fengmian's current speed, it would take a long time to fly back. Therefore, he had to rely on the power of the Star Zone teleportation formation. Chu Fengmian waved his hand. In the depths of the void, all the restrictions and formations disappeared, leaving no trace. No one could detect that someone had cultivated here. After erasing all traces, Chu Fengmian took a step forward and left the depths of the void. Chu Fengmian's figure arrived in the extraterritorial starry sky. Beneath his feet was an incomparably huge continent called the Azure Dragon Continent. Chu Fengmian had previously entered the depths of the void and had always been above the Azure Dragon Continent. However, Chu Fengmian hid in the depths of the void. Even Celestial Realm experts couldn't detect Chu Fengmian's existence. Chu Fengmian glanced down, then flew toward Huanlong City. There was a star field transportation array in Huanlong City that led to the Yama Star region. In just a few breaths, Chu Fengmian had already arrived in Huanlong City. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, the restrictive array of Huanlong City could not stop Chu Fengmian at all. Chu Fengmian swaggered into Huanlong City without anyone noticing anything unusual. Let's head straight back to the Yama domain. Chu Fengmian arrived at Huanlong City and walked in the direction of the Star Domain teleportation array. I heard that the Blue Dragon sect is in trouble this time. What's going on? Recently, the atmosphere in Huanlong City has been strange. Do you know what's going on? That's what I heard. I heard that 2 people from the Blue Dragon sect came. For some reason, they started fighting with the Blue Dragon sect. I heard that several of the Blue Dragon sect's supreme elders and even the new sect master, the sect master of the Dragon Immortal sect, were all injured. Is that true? The sect master of the Dragon Immortal sect is a peerless genius of the Blue Dragon sect. Yin Longxian, ever since he stepped into the half-step celestial realm, has been considered an invincible figure in the same realm. Those supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect are also half-step celestial realm expert. How can they be injured by two people? I heard that it wasn't two people who took action. It was just a young man. One person? Swept through the Blue Dragon sect? What kind of enemy did the Blue Dragon sect provoke? Could it be experts from the three great sacred realms? I don't know, but I heard that those two people are from the Dragon Clan. Dragon Clan? Why would the Dragon Clan fight with the Blue Dragon sect? How would we know about this kind of thing? But this time, if the Blue Dragon sect can't send these two fierce dragons away, it'll be over. I'm afraid that the sect will be destroyed. A few demon immortals of Huanlong City stood on the side of the street and discussed with each other. Chu Fengmian was walking on the street of Huanlong City when he suddenly heard the discussion of a few Huanlong City martial artists. He couldn't help but frown. Was the Blue Dragon sect in trouble? Chu Fengmian had accepted the position of Dragon Lord of the Blue Dragon sect, so it could be said that he had some connections with the Blue Dragon sect. He hadn't expected to hear that the Blue Dragon sect was in trouble as soon as he arrived in Huanlong City. Could it be that Emperor Jihai and the others have found out about my identity and chased me to the Blue Dragon sect? Chu Fengmian frowned at the thought. When he met Yu Wuhan in the Songhai Star Zone, he'd mentioned that he was the Dragon Lord of the Blue Dragon sect. Yu Wuhan was from Lihan Heaven, and Emperor Jihai should be related to Zhihua Heaven. It shouldn't be possible for him to find out about Chu Fengmian's identity from Yu Wuhan. Although the three great sacred realms were known as the three great sacred realms, the martial artists and demon immortals of the three great sacred realms were constantly fighting each other. This could be seen in the Xianjing hidden treasury. Therefore, the chances of Emperor Jihai finding out about Chu Fengmian's identity from Yu Wuhan weren't high. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. Given Chu Fengmian's current strength, he could deal with one immortal general. However, it would be very troublesome if he encountered two immortal generals. If they were really looking for trouble with the Blue Dragon sect because of Chu Fengmian had to be prepared. The most important thing right now was to find someone from the Blue Dragon sect and ask what had happened. As Chu Fengmian pondered, he arrived in front of a palace. There was a starfield teleportation formation in the palace. Usually, the area around the palace was the busiest. The experts of each starfield had to use the starfield teleportation formation to travel to other starfield. Therefore, every city with a starfield teleportation formation would be very prosperous. However, the bustling palace was now deserted. There weren't many martial artists in sight. The gate of the palace was tightly shut. Two disciples of the Blue Dragon sect stood on both sides of the gate to guard it. The starfield teleportation formation was the most important thing in Huanlong City. It was usually strictly guarded, but this time, only two disciples were left behind. Chu Fengmian's face turned even uglier. This proved that something big had happened to the Blue Dragon sect. Chu Fengmian walked towards the palace. One of the disciples of the Blue Dragon sect said when he saw Chu Fengmian walking over, "The starfield teleportation formation is temporarily closed. Senior, please wait for a few days." The disciple of the Blue Dragon sect could tell that Chu Fengmian's strength was extraordinary. He didn't dare to be negligent and spoke politely. First, set a small goal. For example, 1 second. Remember, book guest residence. Chapter 2046. What happened in the Blue Dragon sect? Chu Fengmian looked at the Blue Dragon sect disciple, and went straight to the point. This. The two disciples of the Blue Dragon sect looked at each other. They didn't expect Chu Fengmian to come here to ask about the Blue Dragon sect. Senior, this is a matter of our Blue Dragon sect. You can't tell others about it. Chu Fengmian didn't bother to talk nonsense. A jade talisman suddenly appeared in his hand. The two Blue Dragon sect disciples originally wanted to say something, but when they saw the jade talisman, both of them were stunned and hurriedly said, "Senior brother, don't worry. The Dragon Master's token. It's the Dragon Master." Dragon Master? The two disciples of the Blue Dragon sect had heard that someone had swept across the Blue Dragon sect on his own and even killed the previous patriarch of the Blue Dragon sect, who was later given the title of Dragon Master. However, there weren't many people who had actually seen Chu Fengmian, especially among the disciples of the Blue Dragon sect. There weren't many who had seen Chu Fengmian. The moment they saw the Dragon Master's token, they realized that the person in front of them was the mysterious and powerful Dragon Master of the Blue Dragon sect. Dragon Master, you're back. This time, the Blue Dragon sect is saved. One of the Blue Dragon sect disciples said excitedly. What's going on? Who is it that broke into the Blue Dragon sect and injured so many people? Chu Fengmian asked hurriedly. He wanted to confirm if the people who came to the Blue Dragon sect were the Ocean Emperor and the others. 3 days ago, 2 dragons, one old and one young, suddenly broke into the Blue Dragon sect. They said that they came from the country of 10,000 dragons and wanted the Dragon Master's token. Later on, the sect master said that the Dragon Master's token had been handed over to the new Dragon Master. The two of them wanted the Dragon Master to meet them. They were extremely arrogant and the Supreme Elders couldn't stand it and fought with them. However, that young dragon clansman was extremely powerful. He defeated several utmost exalted elders. Later on, even our sect master fought against him. However, he was injured by him. The two of them said that if the Dragon Master's token wasn't handed over, they would flatten the Blue Dragon sect. Lord Mad Dragon Emperor is not here. Lord Dragon Lord is also not here. Our Blue Dragon sect doesn't know what we did wrong. Lord Dragon Lord is finally back. The two disciples of the Blue Dragon sect quickly explained what had happened. They claimed to be from the country of 10,000 dragons? Chu Fengmian's complexion improved slightly. If these two dragons claimed to be from the 10,000 dragons kingdom and were here for the Dragon Ruler badge, it was unlikely that they had anything to do with the Ocean Monarch and his crew. However, the country of 10,000 dragons was a country established by progenitor Tianlong. It was destroyed tens of millions of years ago and turned into ruins. These two dragons claimed to be from the 10,000 dragons kingdom. It was clear that someone had established a faction later on, and they called themselves the 10,000 Dragons Kingdom. They seemed to have inherited the orthodox lineage of the dragon race. It was just that no one knew where this new 10,000 Dragons Kingdom came from. However, no matter what, since these two dragons had come for Chu Fengmian, the Dragon Master, and since Chu Fengmian had encountered them, there was naturally no need for him to escape. After asking all the questions, Chu Fengmian's figure disappeared from Huanlong City and flew in the direction of the Blue Dragon sect. The Blue Dragon sect used to be the #1 sect in the Blue Dragon starfield. It was incomparably majestic. However, this time around, the entire sect was filled with despair. Ever since the two dragons had arrived at the Blue Dragon sect 3 days ago, they had locked down the mountain gates of the Blue Dragon sect. All the disciples of the Blue Dragon sect could only stay within the Blue Dragon sect, and were not allowed to enter or leave. It was as if they had complete control over the Blue Dragon sect. The various elders and supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect were clenching their teeth in anger. However, none of them dared to face the two of them. 3 days ago, The young dragon had defeated several supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect with ease. Later on, even Yin Longxian, who was said to be invincible among those of the same cultivation level, could not gain the upper hand in the battle against the young dragon, and was injured. Even though there were only 2 of them, there was nothing the entire Blue Dragon sect could do about it. Sect Master, we can't let this go on. We should hurry up and call the Dragon Master back. Since these 2 dragons are here for the Dragon Master token, everything can be resolved as long as we call the Dragon Master back. In the main hall of the Blue Dragon sect, Yin Longxian sat high up on the main seat. As the disciple of the Mad Dragon Emperor, no one dared to object to her sitting on this seat. Especially since Yin Longxian had stepped into the half-step celestial realm, her strength had become invincible among those of the same cultivation level. The supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect were no match for her. Her strength had surpassed the previous sect master. No one had any objections to her sitting on the seat of the sect master. There were many elders seated below her on both sides. These elders were the supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect. Each of them sat on a chair with a pale face. The supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect were all experts who were half a step into the celestial realm. Even though they looked old, they were much more spirited than young people. But now, each of them looked terrible, which meant that they had suffered serious injuries. Sect Master, let's send a message and call the Dragon Master back. One of the Supreme Elders said. If there's no other way, just hand over the Dragon Master token. This will save our Blue Dragon sect from this calamity. As soon as the Supreme Elder spoke, there were many voices of agreement. That's right, call the Dragon Master back and hand over the Dragon Master token. No, the Dragon Master token is the treasure of our Blue Dragon sect. How can we hand it over just like that? Yin Longxian sat on the high seat and said with a frown. What treasure of the Blue Dragon sect? This Dragon Lord token is said to be a treasure, but it's useless in the Blue Dragon sect. Now, it was taken away by that brat called Chu Fengmian. He's just an outsider. What right does he have to be the Dragon Lord of our Blue Dragon sect? One of the Supreme Elders, the Extinction Dragon King, suddenly spoke. That Chu Fengmian is not qualified to be the Dragon Master of our Blue Dragon sect. This is a good time to call him back and hand over the Dragon Master position. As soon as the Extinction Dragon King spoke, the other Supreme Elders were stunned. Extinction Dragon King, please watch your words. Yin Longxian, who was sitting on the throne, stared at the Extinction Dragon King coldly. What? Sect Master, I'm wrong. Chu Fengmian is not a member of our Blue Dragon sect. He became the Dragon Master of our Blue Dragon sect. In my opinion, any disciple of the Blue Dragon sect is more qualified than Chu Fengmian to be the Dragon Master. The Extinction Dragon King ignored Yin Longxian's cold gaze and said coldly, let's set a small target. For example, 1 second. Remember, Bookhouse. Chapter 2047. If Chu Fengmian is worthy of being the Dragon Lord, he should have come out today to solve the problem instead of hiding like a coward. The Extinction Dragon King sneered. Such a person is not worthy of being the Dragon Lord. Extinction Dragon King, offending the Dragon Lord is a capital offense. Yin Longxian's eyes revealed a bit of coldness, and killing intent appeared in her eyes. Capital offense? The Extinction Dragon King ignored Yin Longxian's murderous intent and sneered. Yin Longxian, how long do you think you can be the sect master? Extinction Dragon King, what are you talking about? Extinction Dragon King, are you crazy? The moment the Extinction Dragon King opened his mouth, the other elders of the Blue Dragon sect scolded him. What's wrong? Why is it so lively? This young master has already given you 3 days. Have you not called that so-called Dragon Lord back yet? Suddenly, as they were arguing, two figures descended from the sky and entered the palace. The two figures, an old man and a young man, walked into the palace. The young man looked like he was in his early 20s. His every move exuded a noble aura. What's going on? Why are these two people in the main hall? Our main hall's array? How could it be broken? Something's not right. Did someone break a hole in the array? What's going on? The supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect were in disbelief when they saw the two figures that had suddenly appeared. The powerhouses of the Blue Dragon sect were all hiding in the main hall, relying on the protection of the main hall's array formation. The array formation of the Blue Dragon sect's main hall had been set up by the super powerhouses of the Blue Dragon sect in ancient times. Once the array was activated, even Sky Human Realm experts would not be able to break into the main hall. However, these two people were able to walk into the main hall. Greetings, young Master Long Wuxian. The Extinction Dragon King immediately stood up when he saw the two figures approaching. He walked to the side of the young man and spoke respectfully. The other great elders of the Blue Dragon sect were shocked when they saw this scene. They all shouted angrily. Extinction Dragon King, you actually betrayed the sect? Did you join these two people? Traitor! Extinction Dragon King, you actually became a traitor! Damn it! Damn it! It was you who opened the array formation of this hall. Seeing the Extinction Dragon King's actions, the Blue Dragon sect's great elders immediately understood. It was the Extinction Dragon King who had betrayed the sect and opened the array formation in the main hall to let these two people in. Traitor? What traitor? The Extinction Dragon King said disapprovingly when he heard the angry shouts. Young Master Long Wuxian is a noble figure from the country of 10,000 dragons. He represents the true orthodoxy of the dragon race. You old fogies are the traitors. The Extinction Dragon King glanced at the Blue Dragon sect's great elders and scolded. Why don't you quickly join young Master Long Wuxian? This is your fortune. In the future, you can also join the country of 10,000 dragons. This is the true orthodoxy of the dragon race. That's right. The country of 10,000 dragons is the true orthodoxy of the dragon race. Your Blue Dragon sect is a member of the country of 10,000 dragons. Why don't you quickly join young Master? This is the right path for you. The old man standing behind Long Wuxian also swept a glance and spoke with disdain in his eyes. Today's opportunity is a great fortune for you. Otherwise, you puny half-step Sky Human Realm cultivators wouldn't even have the qualifications to join young Master. A half-step Sky Human Realm cultivator was an absolute expert in the Blue Dragon star field, an overlord existence. But now, this old man was talking about them as if they were ants. However, when they heard this, the other supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect couldn't refute. Previously, when they joined forces, they were easily defeated by Long Wuxian. This old man's strength was above Long Wuxian. Even if the entire Blue Dragon sect worked together, they might not be a match for this old man. In Longxian? I heard that you're the sect master of the Blue Dragon sect. Why don't you quickly lead the Blue Dragon sect to join young Master? The old man's gaze finally fell on In Longxian as he said coldly. Young Master is the genius of the ancient Tianlong clan. His status is incomparably noble. The ancestors of your Blue Dragon sect, the ancient Blue Dragon clan, are inferior dragons in front of young Master. Now, you guys can't even be considered as ancient blue dragons. It's a great opportunity for you to join young Master. Why do you still want to resist? In the dragon race, besides the ancient War Dragon clan, which had the highest status, there were other ancient dragon clans, such as the ancient Tianlong clan, ancient Divine Dragon, ancient Blue Dragon, and so on. Although the ancient War Dragon clan reigned supreme in the dragon race, the ancient War Dragon clan had long disappeared. Occasionally, a few dragons with the bloodline of the ancient War Dragon clan could be found. The ancient Tianlong clan was the current overlord of the dragon race. The two dragons in front of them were actually from the ancient Tianlong clan. Therefore, they didn't care about the dragon race of the Blue Dragon sect at all. The Blue Dragon sect is the Blue Dragon sect. It has nothing to do with the ancient Blue Dragon clan or the Thousand Dragons country. Yin Longxian said coldly. Yin Longxian's words meant that she had completely rejected the idea of joining Long Wuxian. Unappreciative fella. The old man's eyes were filled with anger. He was about to speak when he saw Long Wuxian take a step forward. He immediately fell silent. I don't care if the Blue Dragon sect is willing to join me or not. There are plenty of weak factions that want to join me. I'm here for the Dragon Master token. Hand it over and we'll leave. Long Wuxian's gaze swept across the Blue Dragon sect as he spoke indifferently. The Blue Dragon sect is developing pretty well. It'll be a pity if it's destroyed. I've already given you 3 days. Why? Are you still not going to give me an explanation? Although Long Wuxian's words were calm, there was a hint of threat in them. If they didn't hand over the Dragon Master token today, things wouldn't end well. Everyone in the Blue Dragon sect looked at Yin Longxian. As the sect master, Yin Longxian was the only one who could make such a big decision. The Dragon Master token is the greatest treasure of the Blue Dragon sect. We will never hand it over to an outsider. Yin Longxian said word by word. Although the two of you are of noble status, my Blue Dragon sect is not a bunch of weaklings. Please leave. Is that so? Long Wuxian's expression didn't change when he heard this. However, there was a hint of killing intent in his eyes. First, I'll set a small target. For example, 1 second. Remember, Bookhouse. Chapter 2048. You don't have to do it yourself, let me do it for you. A small Blue Dragon sect doesn't know what's good for them. Let's destroy the Blue Dragon sect today so that they don't embarrass our dragon tribe in the future. The elder standing behind Long Wuxian saw the killing intent in Long Wuxian's eyes. He took a step forward and shouted. A shocking aura burst out from his body as he walked towards Yin Longxian. The supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect looked like they were facing a great enemy. Although the elder had never fought before, his aura was more terrifying than Long Wuxian's. Everyone dared to underestimate him. Young Master Long Wuxian, don't bother. I heard that Yin Longxian has a close relationship with Chu Fengmian. As long as you catch her, you can force Chu Fengmian out. Suddenly, the Extinction Dragon King opened his mouth and said to Long Wuxian. Moreover, Yin Longxian is a good genius. She has the ability to reach the heavenly realm in the future. Young Master Long Wuxian can catch her and keep her as your concubine. Hearing the Extinction Dragon King's words, the killing intent in Long Wuxian's eyes dissipated. He waved his hand and the elder returned to his side. Not bad, not bad. Since that's the case, let's not waste any more time. Extinction Dragon King, you go and catch the girl. Long Wuxian said indifferently. Yes. The Extinction Dragon King's body flashed as he charged towards Yin Longxian. He waved his hand and it turned into a huge dragon claw. It covered the sky as it grabbed towards Yin Longxian. Not good. Protect the sect master. The experts of the Blue Dragon sect were shocked when they saw the Extinction Dragon King attack. The Extinction Dragon King was not Yin Longxian's mat. However, Yin Longxian was already severely injured from the fight with Long Wuxian. She was no match for the Extinction Dragon King. A few figures stood up from the side and attacked the Extinction Dragon King. You old farts? You want to stop me too? The Extinction Dragon King let out a disdainful roar. His huge dragon claws swept down, and the figures in front of him were all sent flying. The great elders of the Blue Dragon sect had all been severely injured. They could not stop the Extinction Dragon King at all. A bunch of trash. The dragon claw swept down and sent the Blue Dragon sect's great elders flying. The Extinction Dragon King laughed loudly and took a step forward. His figure was ghostly and extremely fast. He closed in on Yin Longxian in a single step. Endless dragon power surged in his palm, faintly containing the great path of the Dragon Clan. As he struck out with his palm, 1,000-foot-long dragon claw was formed in the sky and blasted towards Yin Longxian. Yin Longxian's face turned extremely ugly as she looked at the 1,000-feet-long dragon claw. It would not be a problem for her to block the Extinction Dragon King with her full strength. However, she was severely injured and her strength was less than 30%. It was difficult for her to block the attack. "How dare you!" At this moment, a cold voice rang out. At the same time, a shadow fell from the sky. This shadow was also a dragon claw. It was also 1,000 zhang long dragon claw. However, this dragon claw had ancient runes engraved on it. It controlled the origin of the dragon. It was much more mysterious than the Extinction Dragon King's dragon claw. Bam! The two dragon claws collided in the sky. The Extinction Dragon King's dragon claw was instantly shattered. At the same time, the power of the shockwave swept across. The Extinction Dragon King did not have any strength to resist and was sent flying by the shockwave. The Extinction Dragon King's body flew all the way to the wall of the main hall before coming to a stop. The impact was so strong that it caused the entire main hall to shake. The Extinction Dragon King fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. He fainted immediately. The Extinction Dragon King, who was a half-step celestial being, was knocked unconscious by the shockwave of the palm. Many of the supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect were shocked. The Extinction Dragon King was considered a powerhouse among the supreme elders of the Blue Dragon sect. However, he had been defeated so easily. Countless eyes looked around, looking for the person who had attacked. At this moment, a figure stepped into the hall. This figure went straight to the throne at the highest point of the hall. Yin Longxian saw the figure and bowed respectfully, giving up the throne for the figure to sit on. This figure was Chu Fengmian. When he arrived, he saw the Extinction Dragon King showing off his prowess. With Chu Fengmian's status, he was too lazy to fight with a half-step celestial being. However, the Extinction Dragon King was too arrogant and had betrayed the sect. Chu Fengmian hated traitors the most in his life. He had to teach the Extinction Dragon King a lesson. On the other side, the Supreme Elders woke up from their daze and looked at the throne. The Blue Dragon sect's Supreme Elders looked at the throne. When they saw the figure's appearance, they were extremely excited and knelt on the ground to greet him. "Dragon Lord! It's the Dragon Lord! Greetings, Dragon Lord!" All the experts and Supreme Elders of the Blue Dragon sect, including the sect master Yin Longxian, knelt on the ground and greeted him respectfully. The Dragon Lord was the person with the highest status in the Blue Dragon sect. Even the sect master had to greet the Dragon Lord. Originally, some of the Supreme Elders of the Blue Dragon sect were not convinced that Chu Fengmian was not worthy of the Dragon Lord's position. However, Chu Fengmian had knocked the Extinction Dragon King unconscious. This kind of strength was worthy of their respect. "Dragon Lord? You're the Dragon Lord of the Blue Dragon sect." An astonished voice resounded. Long Wuxian sized up Chu Fengmian with a disapproving look in his eyes. "I was wondering what kind of expert the Dragon Lord of the Blue Dragon sect was. It turns out that he's just a half-step celestial being. How can trash like him be qualified to be the Dragon Lord? The position of the Dragon Lord is noble. It's in the country of 10,000 dragons. A Dragon Lord is an illustrious existence. How can a puny half-step celestial being kid be qualified to be the Dragon Lord? The elder standing behind Long Wuxian looked at Chu Fengmian and shouted coldly. In my opinion, you're not even a pure-blooded dragon. You're just a human who obtained some dragon bloodline. You can't even be considered as the lowliest dragon. How can you be the Dragon Lord? The position of the Dragon Lord is not something that you're qualified to hold. Chapter 2049. Now, be sensible and hand over the Dragon Lord token, lest you seek your own death. The old man behind Long Wuxian looked at Chu Fengmian with killing intent in his eyes. His dragon power surged like a ferocious beast, ready to devour someone at any time. This boundless aura caused the expressions of the surrounding experts of the Blue Dragon sect to change drastically. Each of them could not help but tremble. The difference in strength made them lose the will to fight against the old man. Their hearts were filled with fear. What kind of expert is this? His aura is even stronger than the Mad Dragon Emperor. Immortal Realm? No, could it be above that? Immortal Warrior Realm? How can this old man be so powerful? The Supreme Elders looked at each other and saw the fear and despair in each other's eyes. Previously, when Long Wuxian came with the old man, it was Long Wuxian who attacked. As for the old man, he stood behind Long Wuxian and didn't make a move. Although the Supreme Elders of the Blue Dragon sect felt that the old man must be an extremely powerful existence, they didn't expect the old man to use his full strength. His aura was even more terrifying than the Mad Dragon Emperor. The Mad Dragon Emperor, who had crossed the heavenly tribulation and stepped into the immortal realm, was already an unreachable existence in the eyes of the Supreme Elders of the Blue Dragon sect. But now, this old man was even stronger than the Mad Dragon Emperor. And the most terrifying thing was that the old man was extremely respectful to Long Wuxian, even calling himself a servant. Then, Long Wuxian's identity was simply unimaginable. Peak Immortal Warrior. The Supreme Elders of the Blue Dragon sect couldn't see the old man's true strength, but Chu Fengmian could see it clearly. The old man was at the peak of the Immortal Warrior realm, and Long Wuxian was at the half-step Heavenly Being realm. Although Long Wuxian was at the half-step Heavenly Being realm, his strength was even more powerful than an ordinary Heavenly Being realm expert. His dragon power was unbelievably strong. He must have obtained a lot of shocking opportunities. Coupled with the noble bloodline in his body, he could have such strength. With this kind of strength, it was extremely easy to sweep through a third-grade star field like the Blue Dragon star field. It was no wonder that the Blue Dragon sect couldn't resist. Even the Mad Dragon Emperor couldn't resist these two people in the Blue Dragon sect. However, Chu Fengmian's eyes were indifferent. He had seen many experts of the three saint realms in the Songhai star field. A half-step Heavenly Being realm expert and a peak Immortal Warrior realm expert. Seeking my own death? It seems that if I don't hand over the Dragon Master token today, you will kill me? Chu Fengmian sat on the throne and ignored the old man's aura as he spoke with a smile on his face. The outcome. The old man's eyes turned cold when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. The killing intent in his eyes intensified. I advise you, don't waste your energy. Don't make meaningless struggles. The old man's words were very clear. If Chu Fengmian did not hand over the Dragon Master token today, they would kill Chu Fengmian and snatch the Dragon Master token themselves. Chu Fengmian didn't know what the Dragon Master token entailed, but it wasn't in Chu Fengmian's character to be threatened. You want the Dragon Lord token? Suddenly, Chu Fengmian spoke from his throne. A jade talisman appeared in his hand. It was the Dragon Master medallion. Hearing those words, Long Wuxian and the old man revealed a bit of pride in their eyes. The other Blue Dragon sect's great elders, and even Yin Longxian's expressions, changed greatly as they quickly spoke out. No. If you can't hand over the Dragon Lord token, our Blue Dragon sect would rather die than live in dishonor. I thought you were a courageous kid. I didn't expect you to be so weak. But you're smart enough to avoid wasting my time. Long Wuxian looked at Chu Fengmian with a disdainful smile. Since you're willing to hand over the Dragon Lord token, hand it over quickly. I'm not done yet. Chu Fengmian's mind suddenly moved. The Dragon Lord token flew out of Chu Fengmian's palm and floated in front of him. The Dragon Lord token is here. Whoever has the ability to take it can take it. But let me remind you, those who don't have the ability to take it should be careful. After Chu Fengmian finished speaking, he half reclined on the throne. He didn't look at the Dragon Lord token at all. Long Wuxian and the old man looked at each other when they saw this scene. Their eyes were filled with doubt. Young master, let this old man take the Dragon Lord token for you, the old man said to Long Wuxian from the side. Just when the old man was about to move, Long Wuxian waved his hand and stopped the old man. No need. You're just trying to be mysterious. So what if you're just a little half-step celestial being? Since I need the Dragon Lord token, I'll naturally take it myself. Long Wuxian laughed. An ordinary half-step celestial being was no different from an ant in his eyes. He naturally wasn't worried about Chu Fengmian's trick. His body moved as fast as lightning. He leaped up and came to the front of the throne. He reached out his hand and grabbed the Dragon Lord token. However, Long Wuxian was extremely cautious. The moment he reached out to grab the Dragon Master token, his other hand also gathered dragon power. Suddenly, an incomparably huge dragon claw appeared and blasted towards the surroundings. This dragon claw was the claw of primogenitor Tianlong. When it fell from the sky, endless dragon power surged out and rolled down. The fifth move of primogenitor. Long Wuxian can actually perform the fifth move of primogenitor. Seeing the power of the Dragon Claw, the Supreme Elders of Blue Dragon Sect were shocked. Among the Supreme Elders of Blue Dragon Sect, there were very few who could perform the third move of primogenitor. The fourth move of primogenitor could only be mastered by dragon emperors who were above the celestial being realm. As for the fifth move of primogenitor, only the best among the celestial being realm had the ability to perform it. However, Long Wuxian, who was only a half-step celestial being realm, was able to perform the fifth move of primogenitor. Moreover, everyone could see that Long Wuxian wasn't forcing himself to perform it. He had already integrated the fifth move of primogenitor into his heart. It was extremely easy for him to perform it. With just this attack alone, he could be said to be invincible even among the celestial being realm. There were very few who could defeat Long Wuxian. The dragon claw that was performing the fifth move of primogenitor swept out. When it got close to the Dragon Lord token, it was suddenly blocked by an invisible force. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.